If you get it right, you can do whatever you want with me. On a company trip, two departments, known for being like cats and dogs, happened to bump into each other. At the dinner venue, the atmosphere between the two departments was tense, on the verge of exploding. As a result, I ended up representing our department, while the other department was represented by a well-known beauty and the CEO's daughter, Mia. The challenge was for Mia, a Tokyo University graduate, to pose a difficult question to me and see if I could answer it. Confidently, Mia taunted me. "If you can solve this problem, you can do whatever you want. Think you can handle it?" "Yes, I've already solved it." "What? Wait, really?" Everyone turned to look at me in astonishment. My name is Alex, and I'm 22 years old. Currently, I work for a large company called Nelson Manufacturing. Given my age, people often assume I must be some top-notch college grad, but that's far from the truth. My highest level of education is middle school. I went straight into work after graduation. And the company I joined initially wasn't this big corporation. I'm the eldest in a family of 7, my parents and 5 siblings. With 7 mouths to feed, my parents' income alone wasn't enough, and we lived a frugal life. As the eldest, it was my responsibility to look after my younger siblings from an early age. So, I always knew I'd start working young to help support my family. Fortunately, my parents had wide social connections, so even with a middle school education, I had job opportunities. Through my parents, I got a job at a nearby factory. The factory mainly made car parts, supplying them to the automotive manufacturer Nelson Manufacturing. The factory president, Sam, and my father had been close friends for years. With the connection I had from him looking after me when I was little, I decided to join the company and had been grateful for his support ever since. Despite my background, I was truly thankful to be able to work as a full-time employee. Naturally, I assumed I'd spend my life working there. But as time passed, the dynamics between us began to change. At some point, our relationship had shifted from that of an acquaintance, a man and a child, to that of an employee and a company president. Then, one day, an argument between Sam and me worsened things. The argument started because I and a few other employees voiced complaints about the work environment. We wanted better conditions at the factory, so we made various suggestions to Sam. However, Sam had managed to get by in this situation up until now. He insisted he had no intention of changing the old ways, which led to a disagreement and eventually turned into an argument. This happened in my 5th year working under him. Although, in the end, it was merely a suggestion from a single employee. Unable to offer any further opinions, I continued working in the factory as usual, but the atmosphere at the workplace was terrible. Then, one day, Nelson Manufacturing's CEO, Mr. Nelson himself, came for a regular inspection. Sam and Mr. Nelson seemed friendly, with the CEO's visit feeling more like a social check-in. They exchanged greetings happily before heading to the office to chat. A few hours later, Sam came out and called my name. Apparently, Mr. Nelson himself was asking for me. Naturally, there's no real connection between Mr. Nelson and me. I never imagined I'd be called in, so I couldn't help but be surprised. I felt a surge of surprise and nervous tension, wondering what he might want to say. The other employees glanced at me curiously. Gathering my courage, I knocked on the door to the CEO's office and stepped inside. To my surprise, Sam wasn't coming in with me. It was just Mr. Nelson and me, alone in the room. The nerves and sense of isolation made me feel even smaller. Don't be so tense. I'm just a person, too, you know. Well. I'm just a little awestruck to be here alone with you. Sam told me you were feisty, but you're like a cat out of water right now. Yeah, I suppose I am. Fair enough. Now, the reason I called you in was to discuss this. He showed me a few sheets of paper, the very documents that had sparked my argument with Sam. The papers outlined ideas for improving the work environment at the factory. I heard you came up with all of this on your own. Is that true? Yes, that's right. That's quite an ambitious proposal. I sensed a weight in his words that hadn't been there earlier. But it's a great idea. Oh, thank you. So, I have a suggestion. Why don't you come work for us? Excuse me? He was offering me a job, not just any job, but a transfer from the local factory to the development department at Nelson Manufacturing. I had braced myself, expecting him to scold me, just like Sam, for causing trouble, but instead, he praised my ideas and made this unexpected offer. Moreover, it's rare to receive a direct invitation from Mr. Nelson himself. It's something I'm genuinely happy about, especially since my relationship with Sam has been strained lately. The workplace atmosphere remains tense as well. I knew my proposals had played a part in creating this tension, but honestly, I'd been wanting to get out of that strained environment. I was inclined to accept the offer. Still, I knew I had to discuss it with Sam first. So, I told Mr. Nelson I'd get back to him. After he left, I returned to Sam's office and informed him of the offer and my interest in working at Nelson Manufacturing. Sam looked out the office window, so I couldn't see his expression. Then he said just one thing. Do what you want. He said so. It was the first time we'd spoken since our argument. Despite everything, I was deeply grateful to Sam for giving me my start. Though I didn't know how he truly felt, I bowed deeply and said, "Thank you." And that's how I transitioned to working for a major car manufacturer. Naturally, there weren't many people here with only a middle school education. The only knowledge I had was related to car parts from my factory days and general information. When I joined, I felt the judging eyes around me, and I was mostly isolated in the company. I wasn't particularly skilled at making conversation, and my attempts to talk to others often fell flat, so for several months, I struggled with loneliness. It's like back then all over again. One day, when I was feeling uncertain about whether I could keep up in the development department, an employee named Henry, wanting to see what I was capable of, brought me onto the new car development project as a support member. Though I was nervous, I was motivated by this first big responsibility. Since joining, I'd been studying hard to gain the necessary knowledge, and thankfully, the project went smoothly, finishing without any major issues. Henry, thank you so much for your help this time. No problem at all. So, how did you feel about the work? Think you can manage it? Yes, thanks to you. I wasn't a burden, was I? A burden? Not at all. Honestly, compared to most people when they first start, you did great. Everyone talks about education and all that. But it's clearly not just about degrees. I knew I had a good eye for talent. As he said this, he gave me a firm pat on the shoulder. It hurt a bit, but his words mixed with that pain made me genuinely happy. Plus, you came up with ideas no one else would even consider. You're like a genius of innovation. Oh, don't flatter me. I'm not flattering you. I really mean it. Thank you. But there's still plenty to learn, so keep working hard. I will. This experience was a turning point as I continued to deliver results. The other employees gradually began to recognize me as a member of the development team. By the time my second year had passed, I no longer felt isolated and was able to work well with everyone in the team. It was all thanks to Henry's encouragement that day. One day, an invitation to the company trip came my way. In my first year, I'd received an invite, but feeling isolated back then, I turned it down. But now, I thought I might actually enjoy it. Wanting to get to know my co-workers better, I decided to join this year. Apparently, the destination for this year's trip was the same as last year. Some employees looked a bit disappointed, thinking it would be just a repeat. However, this time, there was one difference: the sales department would be at the same location on the same dates. The development and sales departments were known to have a bit of a cat and dog relationship. Their work styles seemed to clash, leading to frequent disagreements. Hearing this, a lot of employees seemed even less excited about the trip. But then Henry spoke up. "Hey, but the CEO's daughter, Mia, is in the sales department, you know?" At that moment, the previously subdued mood brightened up a bit. People began murmuring, "That's true, and it'd be worth it just to see her." Watching everyone's reactions, Henry grinned triumphantly. The CEO's daughter's name is Mia. As Mr. Nelson's only daughter, she has a reputation for being very beautiful, as is evident from everyone's reactions. With her elegant appearance and Tokyo University degree, she was admired as both intelligent and graceful. She applied her talents at work and was making a name for herself. Her personality was gentle and poised, with a friendly demeanor. I'd heard that during a previous dispute between our departments, she'd helped smooth things over more peacefully than usual. Despite her popularity, her status as the CEO's daughter seemed to set her apart, and she was somewhat isolated within the company. However, she didn't seem to let it bother her. Though her circumstances were the opposite of mine, in a strange way, I felt we were similar. Yet she also felt like someone from a completely different world. To everyone else, she was like someone to be admired from afar. Just the thought of sharing the same lodging with her was enough to cause a buzz among the employees. What's more, we're staying at the same place, Henry announced, and the whole group erupted in excitement. The noise level was so high that people in the hallway began peeking in to see what was going on. Just like that, Mia's presence lifted the entire mood, and soon, the day of the trip arrived. While we were headed to the same destination, it didn't mean we'd be traveling together. Each department had different sightseeing spots lined up, and after a day of sightseeing, as our bus approached the lodging, we spotted another bus, presumably from the sales department, parked out front. "Hey! Look over there!" Following my coworker's gaze, I spotted her right away. Her presence, elegance, and aura made her stand out even from a distance. "Wow, you can tell it's her from way over here." As expected of the CEO's daughter. We're lucky to have her around. To be honest, since it was only my second year and I hadn't yet crossed paths with her on any projects, I'd never actually seen Mia before. But even to my eyes, she stood out as distinctly different from the other employees. She was beautiful, yet there was a slight coldness in her expression. While everyone around her was happily chatting and laughing, Mia maintained her composed demeanor, not cracking a smile. Unlike me, she seemed completely at ease being alone in a crowd. It made me realize again that she was a different kind of person altogether. By the way, I heard we're sharing the same dining hall for dinner. When Henry said that, everyone looked at him in surprise. Their reactions varied, some just looked surprised, others seemed pleased, while a few looked a bit uncomfortable. Apparently, one of our teams had a major dispute with someone from sales just a few days ago over an ongoing project. Things were still tense, and they hadn't managed to resolve it yet. "Hey, I'm sure they won't bring up work while we're here to have fun." "It'll be fine," Henry said cheerfully. Encouraged by his optimism, the others relaxed a little. Then, it was time for dinner. The dining hall was a spacious, traditional Japanese banquet room. As soon as we bumped into each other at the entrance, a palpable tension filled the air. Both sides eyed each other warily before giving slight nods and entering the hall together. Though we were in the same room, the seating was arranged separately by department, so dinner itself progressed smoothly. I'm also having a meal, chatting casually with Henry and a few others. The conversation was mostly about work, but since everyone here loves cars, the discussion was lively and animated. After a few hours, with drinks flowing, the atmosphere reached a peak of cheerfulness. People started moving around, mingling at different tables. Needing a break from the drinks, I stayed at my seat for a bit, quietly enjoying a moment to myself. Even though being alone wasn't usually my thing, I needed a breather. Watching everyone else laughing and enjoying themselves made me smile. I wonder, what's she doing right now? Curious, I glanced over at the sales department. Amidst all the cheerful chatter, Mia sat alone, quietly eating at the far end of the room. Her expression was almost exactly the same as it had been at the entrance, calm and unwavering. She must be pretty good with alcohol too, totally different from me. I thought, catching myself getting lost in her beauty. Just then, a loud voice rang out from across the room. The lively chatter instantly halted, and I turned to see what was happening. A couple of employees from sales and development were glaring at each other. Apparently, someone had spilled their drink during a seat change, and it had splashed all over one of our guys from development. A visible stain marked his clothes. "You jerk, look what you did." "Hey, maybe if you weren't so clumsy, it wouldn't have happened." "What did you just say?" In an instant, the air became tense, as if a fight could break out at any second. Henry and one of the sales guys quickly stepped in to mediate. Hey, let's not get into it. It's just clothes, they'll dry by tomorrow, right?" "Oh yeah? Must be nice for development to wear casual clothes." "I'd love to work in casual clothes too." "But you're always wearing the same thing. Aren't you?" "Oh. So what, you're saying I've got no style? Trying to start something?" "Yeah, and what if I am?" Despite Henry and the sales guy stepping in, the two were on the verge of a brawl. "Fine, if you're buying it, I'm selling it." The standoff felt like it lasted forever, each second dragging on like an hour. But then, it wasn't the guy with the spilled drink who shouted, it was Henry. Everyone turned, stunned, their eyes locked on Henry. Even the two who had been glaring at each other froze, too shocked to respond. Ignoring everyone else, Henry went on confidently. "After all, we've got a genius of ideas right here." With that, Henry pointed directly at me. "What?" For a moment, I didn't understand what he meant. But when everyone turned their gaze toward me after his statement, I realized he was talking about me, and the alcohol's effect instantly wore off. Though confused, I followed Henry's beckoning without a second thought. Then, the mediator from the sales department seemed to catch on and said enthusiastically, "If your genius of ideas can't solve a problem from our Tokyo grad genius, then who can, right?" Everyone in the sales department turned to look, startled, at the woman in question. Cautiously, they all directed their gaze to a certain point in the room. Sitting off to the side and eating her meal was Mia. Hearing this, she quietly stood up and started walking toward us. "Oh, right. Alex didn't even go to high school, did he? Think you can handle a Tokyo University level problem?" The mediator nudged, and she locked eyes with me and presented her challenge. It was a physics problem. When she finished presenting the problem, the room went silent. No one in the sales department specialized in physics. They exchanged puzzled looks, clearly baffled. In the development department, a few people had studied physics, yet even they were scratching their heads and looking stumped. Watching this, Mia said softly, "If you solve it, you can do whatever you want with me." At those words, every eye in the room was fixed on Mia. I also found myself mesmerized by her words, just like everyone else. "Wait, Mia? That's a bit much, isn't it?" The sales mediator, clearly taken aback, hadn't expected her to say something like that. It wasn't like Mia to make such a bold statement. Though I briefly wondered if she'd had too much to drink, her expression was entirely serious. "Anything you want." As she said it again, the surrounding crowd burst into cheers. "She said he can do anything if he solves it. What would you ask her to do if you were him?" "If it were me, I'd start by asking for her number." "That's where you'd begin?" Amidst the cheers, I caught these snippets here and there. Henry clapped me on the shoulder and said, "She must have given you a seriously tough problem. Think you can solve it? Because if you do, you get that gorgeous woman." Henry was always upbeat, but his energy was at an all-time high now. Suddenly, memories from before I joined Nelson Manufacturing came to mind when I worked under Sam. Back at that factory, we'd made suspension systems, a part of a car's chassis. At first, I didn't understand a thing, but I ended up studying suspensions and everything related to them for work. "So, do you think you can solve it?" "Yes, I've already solved it." "Alright, wait, what?" Through my work with suspensions, I'd also studied physics. What started as casual learning became a deep dive, and I ended up with a thorough understanding of it. Everyone was stunned by my response, Henry included, as if he couldn't believe his ears. The person who'd posed the problem was equally wide-eyed. Ignoring their astonishment, I stated the answer, and she lowered her gaze and mumbled, "Correct." With that word, the room exploded in excitement once again. The two departments that had been on the verge of conflict just a moment ago were now celebrating together, arms around each other in camaraderie. By the time dinner wrapped up and we left the venue, the two people who had sparked the whole quarrel were smiling and had reconciled. Seeing this, I felt a sense of relief. But at the same time, I was hit with a wave of exhaustion. Likely from the intense atmosphere earlier and the pressure of being the center of everyone's attention. While everyone else talked about heading out for drinks for a second round, I politely declined and decided to return to my room. As I made my way to the elevator, I noticed Mia already standing there, waiting. Noticing me as well, she gave a slight nod and spoke up. "Thank you for earlier." My department caused quite a stir. "Oh, not at all. I'm just glad things settled down. And that's really thanks to you, Mia. I didn't do much." "It was thanks to you for solving that problem, Alex." "Oh? You know my name?" "Of course. I'm in the sales department, so remembering names is my specialty." "You're the one my father scouted from Sam's place, right? I can't believe you know that much, and you know Sam, too?" "Yes. He looked after me a lot when I was young. My father was always busy, so I spent plenty of time at the factory, and he was often my playmate." "Is that so?" "Actually, Sam and my family go way back. We've known each other for years." "Really? How's he been lately?" The truth was, I hadn't been in touch with him at all. We'd kept in touch about personal matters, but it had been 2 years since our last contact. Seeing my hesitation, she kindly changed the subject. "You solved that problem so quickly. Was middle school really your last formal education?" "Oh, it was just luck. I picked up a bit of physics knowledge through my work." "If you could solve that problem, that's more than a bit. I could say the same for you, Mia." "I wouldn't expect someone in sales to know physics at that level." "Well, it's more because of my family. My father's company is an auto manufacturer, so I studied hard to impress him, and I guess it stuck." "Even so, it's impressive how much you know. And that comment you made, it surprised me. I didn't expect you'd say something like that. Especially since we just met. Do I seem like the type who doesn't know how to have fun?" "Oh, no. I didn't mean that. It's all right. Most people get that impression at first. But actually, I did pick up the basics of socializing in college. Of course, I can't imagine someone as beautiful as you wouldn't have admirers." "Thank you, that's kind of you." She looked slightly embarrassed, smiling in a way that caught me off guard. Seeing her, usually so composed, smile like that, I couldn't help but feel a sudden flutter. But then, her expression grew somber as she continued. "Even so, people in my department tend to misunderstand me, thinking I'm a loner or something." "Really?" "Yes. I always feel a bit like an outsider." In fact, from an outsider's perspective, she does seem a bit out of place. I was a bit surprised by those words, though, as I thought she was the type of person who wouldn't care about such things. "Honestly, I did think that a little when I first saw you. Right? I've been like this since forever. Even in school, being the CEO's daughter made me a bit of an outcast. I made a few friends in college, but no one I stayed in touch with after graduating. Maybe it was the alcohol, but she seemed to be letting down her guard, confiding in me with a hint of vulnerability. Her usual calm demeanor softened, and she looked as though she might cry at any moment. Do you think maybe my expressionless face is part of the problem? Oh, not at all. you're not expressionless at all. Your face has been showing all kinds of emotions tonight, and you look really adorable. As soon as I said it, I realized what I'd blurted out. I hadn't meant to say so much, but seeing her grow quieter and sadder, I just couldn't help myself. Sorry. I didn't mean, that probably sounded like I was hitting on you, didn't it? No. You were just trying to cheer me up, right? Thank you. She seemed a bit flustered too, perhaps caught off guard by my words. After a brief silence, the elevator chimed, signaling its arrival. I asked her what floor she was heading to, pressed the button, and the elevator began its ascent. You know, I didn't expect this. What do you mean? When I first saw you, I thought you were the type who preferred being alone. Her expression seemed to fall at those words. If you don't mind, would you let me help? What? I've been through something similar myself. Really? Yeah. My family was close, but we were poor, and that made my school life pretty rough. It's different from your experience. But I was an outsider too, so I understand how hard it can be. Remembering those days still made my chest tighten. After middle school, I decided to work instead of going to high school, not just because of family circumstances, but also because I didn't want to experience that same isolation again. I see. Sorry if it's sudden and intrusive, but I feel like I'm looking at my younger self in you, so I just want to help. Oh, no, it's not that. But I wouldn't want to trouble you with this. Hey, you did say I could do whatever I wanted if I solved that problem, right? Oh. Does that mean you'll do whatever I ask? Then please, let me help you. She let out a small laugh. I've never had anyone use their wish on something like this. If you're going to insist, maybe I will take you up on it. And so, I ended up helping her work on her reputation in the company. Alright then, let's get started, Mia. She gave me a mischievous smile. Yes, Alex. When she said my name with that warm smile, my heart skipped a beat. Then, with a brighter expression, she said, You know, this might be the first time I've really opened up like this. Don't say things like that. You're going to make me misunderstand. Alex, you're surprisingly pure-hearted, aren't you? What? No way. She tilted her head slightly, looking right at me with an amused glint in her eyes. Don't tease me. I'm not teasing. But if it's you, maybe I wouldn't mind if you did misunderstand. It turns out Mia wasn't just the talented, kind, and elegant CEO's daughter, she also had a side that could easily throw me off balance. After that, as I promised, I started helping her, and before I knew it, her reputation had transformed. She was no longer seen as a silent, stoic figure. Now, people saw her as a cool but warm-hearted person who was willing to lend a hand to others. Compared to before, she'd become approachable, someone people found easy to talk to. Far from being isolated in her department, she'd become so popular that she apparently even had her own fan club. Her new reputation had even reached the development department, typically at odds with sales. Hey, I heard Mia's changed a lot lately. Yeah, I heard that too. They say she's way easier to talk to now. Maybe I should try talking to her. Who knows? I might get close to her. Yeah, right. You'd probably pass out within a minute. Because she's so gorgeous? Too gorgeous. Yeah, I guess you're right. There's even a rumor that she has a boyfriend now. What? Really? Well, they say having a partner can change a person. Hearing these rumors spreading around the office made me feel a pang of anxiety. Because, in fact, Mia and I had started dating. Just before we'd gotten off the elevator that night, we'd exchanged contact information, and after the company retreat, we'd kept in touch. As we got to know each other, we discovered a shared passion for cooking. Soon, we were visiting each other's places on weekends, preparing meals together. Our relationship deepened, and eventually, I confessed my feelings and we started dating. No one else at the company knew about it yet. So naturally, I was nervous about what Mia's fan club and the others might say if our relationship were discovered. When I shared my worries with her, Mia gave me a confident reply. "If it comes to that, I'll protect you." Watching her say that, I understood why she had such a following. As for me, thanks to Henry's encouragement, I had been assigned to lead my first project alone. The project was the development of a new suspension system. Apparently, my experience working at a suspension factory played a part in my selection. Henry mentioned that it was almost unheard of for someone as young as 22 to lead a project, making this an exceptional opportunity. People from the external factory, where the mass production will actually take place, are also coming for this project. This, of course, means that people from the factory where I used to work will also be here. On the first day of the project, I ran into Sam in the hallway outside the conference room. It had been about 2 years since we last met, after that tense conversation in the president's office. Because we had parted on awkward terms, I hadn't spoken to him since. "Doing well?" During a short break in the meeting, as I was taking a breather in front of the vending machine in the office, I heard a voice from behind. It was a familiar, nostalgic voice I hadn't heard in years. I turned around to see Sam standing there. "Yes. Good." I hadn't expected him to initiate a conversation, so I responded awkwardly, unsure of what to say. Still, I had long regretted that I'd caused trouble for him with my impulsive proposal, affecting the workplace atmosphere. Sam, about back then, I'm sorry." Unable to bear the silence, I ended up apologizing for what had happened. "I'm sorry for the trouble I caused you with my selfish proposal back then, and for making things difficult at work." With my head bowed deeply, I couldn't see his expression. But I could feel his gaze on my back. "Raise your head, Alex. I'm the one who should be apologizing." Surprised by his response, I looked up as he asked. According to Sam, he had thought my proposal back then was a good one, just like Mr. Nelson had. However, implementing it in the factory was challenging, with concerns about costs and uncertain outcomes. It was around then that he happened to consult with Mr. Nelson, who ended up recruiting me to his company as a result. "You had already made several excellent suggestions before that incident. I thought it was a waste for you to remain just an employee at the factory. I wanted to tell you at the time, but it didn't feel like the right moment." "So, you weren't angry then?" "No. I just couldn't find the right words." I sank to the ground, overwhelmed. I could still vividly remember that scene from 2 years ago. Sam standing there, looking away in silence. At the time, I thought he was furious. Learning the truth after 2 years, I couldn't stop the tears of relief from flowing. Thank goodness, thank goodness. Though, to be fair, I was still pretty frustrated. He said with a laugh. "But I'm glad we finally cleared up the misunderstanding. Sorry for letting you think otherwise all this time. No, if I'd known, I should have reached out to you sooner. I feel like a weight's been lifted. Well, now you'll have to shoulder something even bigger from here on out. I'm counting on you, Alex." With that, Sam turned and headed back to the conference room. The project moved forward smoothly, and the newly developed suspension was successfully completed and set to be installed in the next car model. News of the project's success reached the sales department as well, and of course, Mia had heard about it. The night the project wrapped up, I arrived home to find her waiting for me at the entrance. "Welcome home. I've been waiting for you." She gave me a light hug and, taking my bags, pulled me by the hand to the living room. Once there, I was greeted by the aroma of delicious food, with the table covered in dishes she had lovingly prepared. She prepared a feast to celebrate my hard work, waiting for me to come home so we could celebrate together. "Did you make all this, Mia?" "Of course. Who else would cook in this house?" Every dishes were my favorites. She'd often have dinner waiting for me, But this night, after completing a major project, seeing her efforts felt even more special. Overwhelmed with happiness, I wrapped her in a tight hug. "Hey, you're squeezing me. Let's get married." "What?" Overcome with emotion, the words just slipped out. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small box. "I've been carrying this around, waiting for the right moment to give it to you." I opened the box and showed her the ring inside. "Is this?" "Yes, an engagement ring." "It might seem sudden, but Mia, there's no one else for me but you." She looked back and forth between the ring and me, her eyes shining with joy and happiness. "Mia, will you marry me?" In response, she threw her arms around me tightly. "You're the only one for me too, Alex. I'm so happy. Let's keep making each other happy." "Hey, that's my job, to make you happy." In the months leading up to the wedding, we went around sharing the news. First, we started by reporting to each other's departments. This was done individually, rather than the two of us presenting together. My department mostly congratulated me, though a few people struggled to hide looks of envy. For Mia, who had a fan club, the reactions were mixed. Some celebrated her joyfully, while others shed tears of bittersweet happiness. We also went to see Sam, our mutual friend. Though surprised, he smiled and congratulated us warmly, saying, "You've both grown up so much." "Congratulations." Naturally, we also visited Mr. Nelson. At first, I was a bit tense, worried he might disapprove, but instead, he bowed deeply and thanked me. "I'm so glad I scouted you back then." Stunned, we listened as he continued, this time addressing Mia. He apologized to her for the loneliness she'd felt as a child, and for the difficulties she faced as the company president's daughter. She told me she'd never seen her father apologize before. Seeing this rare side of him and hearing his true feelings, she cried as she hugged her father tightly, like a child finding comfort. Then, I brought Mia to visit my family home. I felt a bit hesitant about showing her my cramped, messy home, but she insisted, wanting to see it before our marriage. When my family heard I was coming home, not only my parents but also my siblings had gathered to meet Mia and me. It was as lively as always, and though I worried about the chaos, she seemed to find it all charming, laughing happily throughout the visit. She told me later that the warm, crowded dinner around that small, noisy table was a memory she would cherish forever. "Hey! Hurry up and show us the way. How long do you plan to keep us waiting?" One man, speaking in German, was barking orders at the receptionist, Nina. She bit her lip and cast her gaze downward. Her short bangs fell over a scar on her forehead. Today was a big day for our company, as we were showcasing our new product to companies from around the world. But the lack of proper guidance had turned the reception area into a chaotic scene. All around, voices in different languages echoed complaints. Serves you right. That's what happens when a monster tries to act like a human." Nina's sister, who had just arrived, sneered with a twisted smile. Nina, her face pale, started to tear up. Someone needed to guide the people gathered here. Ideally, someone who could speak all the languages of those present. I took a step forward, taking a deep breath, to protect Nina from anything that might harm her. The company where I, Tyler, had recently joined was a medical equipment manufacturer and supplier with a broad overseas client base. The department I was assigned to was headed by Rose, the daughter of Mr. Hawkins, the company president. She was beautiful and highly competent, but her tendency to rely on her status as the president's daughter was her one major flaw. "Tyler, didn't you graduate from that university known for producing top talent? And yet you can't handle even this basic task?" I could have done it faster myself. I had just handed in some presentation materials for our upcoming product, and that was the feedback I received. "Sorry, I'm still getting the hang of things." That's no excuse. As a mid-career hire, you should know you're expected to be an immediate asset. Rose, clearly irritated, wound a strand of her red hair around her finger. I looked away from Rose, scanning the office around me. But the other senior employees were focused on their own work, not even glancing my way. I realized, after 2 weeks here, that no one wanted to invite Rose's criticism and was too busy perfecting their own tasks to have any energy left to help a newcomer. I returned to my desk, sighed softly, and began correcting the data Rose had pointed out earlier. "Get it together." Rose's voice, much harsher than what I had experienced, rang sharply through the office. I looked up to see Nina standing where I'd been earlier. Our eyes didn't meet, but I quickly shifted my gaze back to my computer screen. Nina was Rose's older sister. That made her a daughter of the president as well. But unlike Rose, Nina struggled with her work. She also had an air of gloom about her. Her bangs were long enough to nearly cover her eyes, and she often looked down. We occasionally spoke out of necessity for work, but she mumbled so much that she was hard to understand. Perhaps because of this, Rose treated Nina quite cruelly. Despite being the elder sister, Nina never talked back, quietly accepting whatever Rose said. Given her unapproachable vibe and the risk of drawing Rose's ire if anyone got too close to her, no one really talked to Nina. I was no exception. With Rose's scolding of Nina in the background, I continued my work in silence. This was becoming a regular occurrence. Then, one day, I made yet another careless mistake, sparking Rose's anger once again. "Absolutely useless. I can't believe you have such a prestigious background." "Fine, just go organize the documents." Handed a large pile of unsorted files, I dejectedly made my way to the filing room. There, numerous files stored previous employees' estimates and sales records. As I wondered why I, of all people, was stuck with this menial task, I shook my head in frustration. No. I promised myself I wouldn't let arrogance like that creep in again. Determined to start fresh, I opened the door to the archive room, only to see someone peeking out from between the shelves. It was Nina. Seeing her here surprised me, but I managed to swallow back the startled noise that almost escaped my lips. Are you looking for something?" "Oh, no, I wasn't here to find anything. Rose just told me to do some organizing." "Oh, I see." Nina quickly withdrew her face from view. I noticed that she, too, seemed to be sorting through documents. In the back of the room, the work table was piled high with papers and files, leaving me only the space beside her to set down my documents and search for files to use. Even though I thought it was odd to still be keeping paper records in this day and age, it was apparently Mr. Hawkins' policy. Having both digital and physical copies ensured that information was accessible even if one format became unavailable. I sorted the documents Rose handed me into proposals, estimates, and contracts, filing each in its designated place. After 2 hours of this, my concentration was fading. I glanced over at Nina, who was steadily and silently organizing her documents without so much as a glance in my direction. She seemed suited to this kind of quiet, detailed work. With that thought, I got up to return the completed files. But the weight of the file caught me off guard, and my legs, a bit unsteady from sitting, gave a small wobble. I stumbled, bumping into Nina's desk, scattering her neatly piled documents across the floor. "Sorry." Setting down my files, I hurriedly began gathering the papers from the floor. Still, my actions didn't change the fact that I had disrupted her work. There was no undoing this mistake. "Let me help you organize." "So, how are you sorting these?" "Oh, I was organizing the meeting minutes by topic." "By topic? You're doing all that?" Rose's orders. Organizing by topic meant she'd have to read through each document. An obviously time-consuming task. I immediately recognized it as another one of Rose's ways of making things difficult for Nina. Realizing I'd likely be working overtime if I helped her, I tried not to sigh. "Oh, actually, I'll be fine. If I know the year and which meeting it was, I can sort them without reading them." "Without reading them? Wait, you've memorized it all?" The agendas, at least. Okay, then, what about this one, second meeting of 2015? I pointed to a random meeting record, and Nina's expression tightened with focus. That was the meeting where we decided to host a trade show in Luxembourg. Checking the minutes, I found she was exactly right. Impressed, I looked at Nina, who quickly blushed and lowered her head. I can do this myself, so you should go back, Tyler. Rose will get mad at you. True, but since I'm the one who messed up the papers, let me help. We'll get done faster if we work together, right? But, ignoring her hesitation, I began sorting through the documents. I opened a meeting record to check its contents. That one is for the charity project. Please place it here. Following Nina's instruction based on the title she had glanced at, I set it where she indicated. Seeing me reach for the next document, Nina seemed to give up on insisting otherwise. Tyler, tell me the year and the meeting number, and I'll let you know the agenda. Got it. Alright, 2021, fourth meeting. That one's also about the charity project. While she answered, Nina continued sorting through the documents in front of her. I couldn't help but feel more impressed as she multitasked effortlessly, and I got back to my own work. What I thought would take over an hour ended up only taking 30 minutes, and I even helped with the rest of Nina's work. We managed to finish everything before the end of the day, and I let out a relieved breath. Thank you so much. You even helped with my remaining work. Don't worry about it, think of it as an apology. Besides, I had the wrong impression about you, Nina. The wrong impression? Yeah. Since Rose was always scolding you, I assumed you weren't good at your job. But you remember all the meeting minutes and could give me directions while doing your own work. You've got some real talent. And I only looked at the surface. I'm really sorry. I saw Nina's eyes widen beneath her bangs. And then she laughed softly. No need to apologize for that, but thank you. Nina's smile, which I saw for the first time, was incredibly radiant. I felt an overwhelming urge to keep seeing that smile of hers. I realized I'd fallen for Nina. Maybe it's simple, but I can't suppress this fluttering in my chest. I wanted to get closer to her. With that in mind, I decided to start talking to her more from the next day. Good morning, Nina. When I greeted her, Nina yelped, "Ah!" and turned to face me with a blush. Realizing it was me, she let out a small sigh of relief. Her reaction, like a startled little animal, made me want to protect her even more. Good morning. You really shouldn't talk to me too much. Rose will get mad. Nina looked around, noticing that a few employees were casting curious glances our way. Rose hadn't arrived at the office yet. She always showed up right at the start of the workday. Besides, I didn't mind if Rose saw us talking. I'm used to her scolding me. More importantly, I'd like to get to know you better, Nina. How about we have lunch together? Well, I brought my own lunch. So did I. Nina blushed deeper, hesitated for a moment, and then slowly nodded. Inwardly, I cheered. Hey, you too. It's time to start working. Get to it. I looked up to see Rose, who had just walked in, glaring at us with narrowed eyes. By the way, didn't you two take a suspiciously long time on those files yesterday? Oh, that's because Tyler helped me with my work. Of course he had to help. You're useless at everything, Nina. It's embarrassing to have someone like you as my sister. Nina lowered her head, clearly hurt by Rose's harsh words. Angered by her comment and seeing Nina's downcast face, I stepped in front of her, shielding her from Rose. That's not true. Yesterday, I accidentally messed up Nina's documents, and the only reason we finished on time was because of her skills. She has memorized all the past meeting records and managed to guide me through while doing her own work. She's actually an incredible asset. I raised my voice enough for the other employees listening around us to hear. Rose, clearly caught off guard by my response, stood there speechless for a moment. She then furrowed her brows, twisting a strand of her red hair around her finger. She's memorized all the meeting minutes? I can't even do that. There's no way Nina could. Alright, Nina, what was the agenda for the 32nd meeting last year? It was whether or not we would sponsor the upcoming World Swimming Championship, which is this year. One of the employees nearby reacted to Nina's answer. Ah, I remember that meeting, I was there. Let me see, yes, it really was the 32nd meeting from last year. Hearing this, the other employees started murmuring. That was just a coincidence. It's not unusual to remember last year's agenda. Alright, then, Nina, how about the 27th meeting from 1992? It was about strategies for securing contracts with a major Japanese corporation. The same employee confirmed this was correct, and cheers erupted across the office. Nina has a talent like that? To remember everything? I wouldn't remember even after 10 years. Nina, that's amazing. Nina seemed to shrink with embarrassment as she was praised by her colleagues. Just then, Fiona from our department approached Nina. Nina, could you help me with something? I'm in charge of setting up the company's trade show next month. And I wanted to look at past documents for reference. But finding the right meeting minutes is a challenge. Especially since the internal data doesn't support content searches yet. Oh, but I'm not sure if. I gently placed a reassuring hand on Nina's shoulder as she hesitated. You just need to share what you remember. You'll be fine. Nina looked up at me and, after a moment, nodded resolutely. Then she headed to Fiona's desk with her. As they walked away, I noticed Rose glaring sharply at Nina's back. Hold on, Nina. Now, Rose, no need to interfere with work. You were the one telling her to work, weren't you? With a light nudge, Rose bit her lip in frustration. Before spinning around and stomping back to her desk. Lunch break. As promised, I had lunch with Nina. As we opened our lunch boxes in the break area, Nina gave me a small smile. Fiona was so grateful to me. I'm glad I could help. It made me really happy. I found myself admiring how beautiful Nina looked in that moment. Just then, she looked up. Her eyes meeting mine directly from beneath her bangs. Thank you for encouraging me at that time, Tyler. If I'd been alone, I would have run away. I wouldn't have felt this happy. I'm glad you're happy, Nina. My face softened naturally as I spoke, and Nina, blushing, looked down. And resumed eating quietly. Hey, Nina, would you mind if we had lunch together again tomorrow? Well, I don't think I'd make good company for lunch. I don't know. I'm really enjoying my meal right now. And, Nina, you should stop saying things like I'm not much. I told you I want to get closer to you, right? That's how special you are. As I spoke, Nina finished her meal and took a sip of her hot tea. Then, she looked at me, studying my face as if to gauge my sincerity. As I grew nervous under her gaze, she finally opened her mouth to speak slowly. I also enjoyed having lunch with you, Tyler. If you'd like, I'd be happy to eat together again tomorrow. Great. Looking forward to it, Nina. Suppressing the urge to jump for joy, I nodded enthusiastically at her. Since Nina started getting recognition, the office atmosphere had brightened. With her helping out, everyone had more time to assist each other and even chat about non-work topics, making the environment more relaxed. You know, we haven't had a welcome party for Tyler yet. Someone mentioned, likely prompted by the cheerful shift in the workplace. Before I knew it, my welcome party was being organized. Today's the day. At a bar that's apparently a favorite for holiday parties, everyone was waiting for me to give a toast. Once the greeting settled down, Nina took a seat beside me. Cheers, just between us, Nina said, holding out her glass of beer. I clinked mine against hers, producing a clear, resonant sound. Nina took a hearty sip of her beer. Nina, I didn't know you could drink alcohol. Well, being around you, Tyler, makes me feel more relaxed, so I guess the real me comes out. That's an honor. I replied, causing her to smile warmly. Her words made my heart race. She feels relaxed around me. That has to mean she trusts me, right? Does she like me too? I glanced over at Nina, but she was entirely focused on a plate of chicken wings. Shaking off my wishful thinking, I took another sip of my beer. Nina, pass me some too. Sure thing. She replied cheerfully, handing a dish over to Fiona. Nina, you've really opened up. You're like a different person from when I first joined. Hee, you think so? Nina, looking embarrassed, fidgeted with a nearby plate, which only made her even more endearing. As I admired her, Rose took a seat directly across from us. She'd mentioned she'd be late, so I assumed she'd just arrived. With a scowl on her face, Rose glared at us, twirling a lock of her red hair around her finger. Rose, how are you? I greeted her, trying to be polite, but she didn't respond. Lately, her mood had been sour. With fewer mistakes in the office, she had no one to vent her frustrations on. And even Nina had started standing up for herself whenever Rose's comments crossed the line. Rose seemed increasingly irritated, probably because her usual outlet was gone. I decided to let her be and turned back to my conversation with Nina. Nina was also concerned about Rose, but she would look at me if I broached some subject. And that simple gesture made me happy. Watching us intently, Rose suddenly smirked and picked up a glass with some melted ice left over from someone's drink. Tyler, you seem to be fond of Nina. But I wonder if you'll still feel that way once you know her true self. In an instant, Rose flung the contents of the glass at Nina. The cold water splashed so forcefully that a few drops even hit me. Nina, are you all right? I grabbed a napkin and leaned in to check on her. But then I froze at what I saw. Her bangs, always covering her eyes, were wet and stuck flat to her forehead. That's why I could see it. I see a big scar there. The entire room fell silent as everyone else noticed it too. Rose's smug grin widened as she took in our reactions. See that scar? Isn't it hideous? That's Nina's real face. A tear fell onto Nina's hand, which rested on her lap. She stood up abruptly, head down, and dashed out of the bar. Nina! I hurried after her, leaving behind Rose's triumphant laughter. Nina was running through the bustling city streets at night. She ran off without even apologizing after bumping into someone. The person she bumped into, noticing the scar on her forehead, shouted angrily after her, "Apologize, you monster." I wanted to hit him but swallowed my anger, knowing that catching up to Nina was more important. Eventually, Nina reached a deserted park and stopped there. I slowly approached her as she stared blankly at the moths fluttering around a streetlight. Hearing footsteps, Nina looked in my direction. Through her messy bangs, the scar on her forehead was clearly visible. Realizing this, she gave a self-deprecating smile and brushed her bangs back into place. You followed me. Then you must have heard it earlier. I'm a monster, a hideous monster. Nina sat down on a bench illuminated by the streetlight. Small, round spots began forming on the ground. Lately, people have been treating me well, and I got carried away. I was so happy to be useful to someone. To hear people say they wanted to be friends with me, that I thought as long as I kept this scar hidden, I could be just like everyone else. I gently touched her hand as she gripped her bangs tightly. What are you saying, Nina? You're an ordinary person. No, you're not ordinary. You're a truly lovely and captivating woman. Nina looked up, startled. Her tear-filled eyes sparkled in the streetlight like stars. I tenderly unclasped her fingers from her tightly held bangs. Nina didn't resist. Even with this scar? The scar doesn't change who you are, Nina. Holding her released hand, I knelt before her, one knee on the ground, looking up at her as she sat on the bench. I like you, Nina. I want to protect you from anything that might hurt you. Nina grasped my hand tightly and began to cry again. I like you too, Tyler. When I'm with you, I feel safe and brave. You were the first to say you wanted to be friends with me. As she blushed with tear-streaked cheeks, I gently embraced her. Encouraged by her acceptance, I stroked her hair and then kissed her forehead. Nina smiled softly through her tears. Tyler, there's something I want to tell you. It's about this scar. Only the moths drawn to the light, and I heard the secret she began to share. The next day, when Nina came to the office, her appearance caused a stir. She had cut her bangs short, revealing her large forehead scar and her determined, sparkling eyes. Good morning, Nina. You look refreshed. Good morning, Tyler. Yeah, I feel great. As we exchanged cheerful smiles, the murmurs in the office quieted down a bit. What are you all staring at? It's time to start work. Rose walked over, her voice sharp, then stopped in her tracks, eyes wide in surprise as she looked at Nina. Then, she burst into laughter, clutching her stomach. Oh, wow! Look at you! What's with this look? Deciding to flaunt your flaws, are you? I'm not flawed. Nina's firm response made Rose stop laughing. Ha? Have you even looked in a mirror? Oh, wait, you're a monster, so I guess mirrors don't show your reflection, huh? Rose, that's enough. I couldn't hold back any longer and stepped in. Seeing this, the other employees began to gather around us. Yeah, that was uncalled for, Rose. Just because you're the boss's daughter doesn't mean you can say anything you like. What does a scar matter? It doesn't affect her work. Faced with the chorus of disapproval from her co-workers, Rose faltered. Well, everyone, like Rose said, it's already time to start work, so let's get to it, okay? When Nina said that, everyone dispersed reluctantly back to their desks. Though some who often got help from Nina glared at Rose before returning. Thought you'd save the day? Don't get cocky. Twisting a strand of her red hair around her finger, Rose turned her back on us. Nina, starting today, you'll be working at the reception desk. A few days after Nina cut her bangs, Rose suddenly made this announcement. Nina's eyes widened in surprise. Reception. Me? Why? I asked my father to assign you there so you could practice showing off that hideous scar to the public. You should be grateful. Rose crossed her legs and sneered. Seeing her attitude, I and the other employees frowned. Rose, this is a problem. Nina is an important member of this department. No matter how much Nina has brightened up recently, isn't this a bit extreme? Be quiet. This is a direct order from the boss. Rose's harsh slap on the desk silenced everyone. But the cold stares remained. To cut through the tension, Nina stepped forward. I'll be fine, so don't worry. Like Rose said, I'm still not used to talking to people outside this department. So I'll see it as practice and give it my best. Though none of us liked it, we accepted it for Nina's sake. Unable to focus on work out of concern, I went to check on her during lunch. She looked surprisingly good in the reception uniform, but anyway. Nina, how's it going? Has anyone said anything unpleasant? Oh, Tyler. You're worried about me? Thanks, but I'm fine. It's only been half a day, I'm not worn out yet. Her amused smile made me chuckle despite myself. At first, the visitors were startled by my scar, but I think they'll get used to it soon. I've already remembered the faces and names of the people who came by earlier, so I think I'll be able to assist more smoothly next time. If they come to know me as someone who can work well, even with a scar, I think they'll eventually accept me, just like you all do. Relieved to see Nina standing tall and confident, I nodded. Now, let's get to lunch. Nina briefly went to the back and returned with her lunchbox. As we headed to the break room, we encountered Rose, standing firmly in our path. So far, so good, I see. But it's only been half a day. Let's see how long that dutiful attitude lasts. With that, Rose turned on her heel and walked away. I stood there in disbelief as Nina tightened her grip on her lunchbox, watching Rose's retreating figure. The product exhibition that Fiona had planned, with Nina's help, was coming up next week. Our department was busy with preparations for the large-scale event in the company's main hall, which would welcome visitors from many countries, not just English-speaking regions. The purpose this time was to engage with regional businesses renowned for their innovative techniques and development, rather than major companies. So we hoped to make a good impression by speaking their languages. I studied a bit of Chinese in college, so I can manage at a beginner level. Nina murmured during lunch, a hint of nervousness in her expression. Don't worry. We've prepared multilingual brochures, so you just need to hand them out. You're right. You, Fiona, and the rest of you have worked hard to prepare for this exhibition, so I'll do my best too. Her enthusiastic gesture, clenching both fists as if to pump herself up, was so cute that I couldn't resist giving her a hug. She blushed immediately. And so, the day of the exhibition arrived. Fiona, the lead organizer, was busy running around since early morning. Just bring these brochures to the reception area, right? I'll take them. Perhaps overwhelmed by the bustling environment, even Rose decided to help with the menial tasks, carrying a box of brochures out of the room. Before long, it was time for the reception to begin. I had reassured Nina, but I couldn't shake the worry, so I decided to check on her. The entrance was bustling with people. Voices in English, Chinese, Korean, Japanese, German, and Arabic filled the air. Every language carried undertones of frustration, making me frown. Navigating through the crowd, I finally reached Nina at the reception desk. She looked pale and was visibly flustered. Nina, what's wrong? Oh, Tyler. For a moment, relief flickered across her face, but then she looked as though she was about to cry. The brochures haven't arrived, and we've already started the reception. I don't know what to do. I glanced at the reception desk in shock. There were indeed no brochures. Rose had said she'd bring them. Well, isn't this a shame? Turning toward the voice, I saw Rose smirking with satisfaction. She held nothing in her hands. Rose. Where are the brochures? I left them with someone else who offered to bring them over. So, I'm not responsible, she said with an indifferent shrug. You brought this on yourself, trying to act like a normal person when you're not. Consider this a lesson. Anger surged within me at Rose's words and behavior. But seeing the tears welling up in Nina's eyes, my anger faded, replaced by a resolve to fix this situation. Without the brochures, someone needed to guide the crowd gathered here. Someone who could speak all these languages. Hurry up! How much longer do you expect us to wait? A man in the crowd yelled at Nina in German. Nina bit her lip, lowering her head. Her shortened bangs fell to cover her beautiful eyes. I stepped forward and took a deep breath. I'll be your guide. Please follow me, I announced in German, loud enough to be heard across the entrance. The man yelling at Nina blinked in surprise. Oh, so there's someone who speaks German. Then, please guide us. What did you just say? As I started leading the German visitors, a woman pushed forward, demanding an explanation in Chinese. I said I'd guide you. Please follow along. I replied in Chinese, then repeated the same instructions in Japanese, Korean, and Arabic. The complaints filling the entrance immediately ceased. Nina, leave them to me. You handle the English-speaking guests. Nina looked up at me, stunned, and after a moment, nodded firmly before returning to her work. I then focused on guiding our international visitors in various languages. The exhibition ended up being a huge success. Apparently, we even closed more deals than usual. It's all thanks to Tyler's guidance. Thank you. I had no idea you were multilingual. Fiona praised me, and the other employees nodded in agreement. Embarrassed, I could only smile awkwardly. After my initial reception duties, several foreign guests had specifically requested I explain the products to them. So I'd been assisting them the entire time. Switching between 5 languages was exhausting, but seeing everyone's satisfaction made it all worthwhile. What's going on here? Who are you, exactly? Just then, Rose's shrill voice cut through, her expression sharp as she glared at me. In response, I merely shrugged. What do you mean, who am I? I'm just the same useless employee you already know, Rose. Don't lie. You can speak all those languages. Why would such a skilled person? Skilled, huh? Her words made me look up at the ceiling, lost in thought. I used to believe I was skilled too. I was always top of my class as a student. I could pick up other languages quickly. So, when I landed a position at a top company, I thought, of course, they would want someone like me. And with that attitude, I worked there for 5 years. You went to the same college as me, right? Yet you can't even handle such basic tasks? Honestly, I could have done it faster myself. I coldly handed back the data that my junior, Tate, had submitted. Sorry, I'm still getting used to the work. That's no excuse. The fact that you went to the same university and work here embarrasses me as your senior. Tate, trying to hold back tears, returned to his desk. A few co-workers gathered around him, trying to comfort him. I scoffed, thinking they were wasting their time on someone so useless when they could be working. Looking back, maybe my attitude made me pay for that later. One day, I was assigned to lead an event for the company. Since the event required someone who could handle multiple languages, they chose me. But the task of planning an event wasn't my strength. You there, you're free, aren't you? Take over this task for me. I spoke to Tate, who I had dismissed before. But almost immediately, other co-workers stepped in, blocking my path. You know, you've been full of yourself for a long time. Just because you're good at your job doesn't mean you can act this way. We're not helping him out. Let him figure it out himself. They led Tate away, leaving me behind. I tried asking others for help, but nobody wanted to deal with me. Oh, talented Tyler can handle it all alone, right? They'd sneer. In the end, I scraped together a plan by myself, but it was so poorly received in the proposal stage that I was removed from the project. Tate took over, built the plan with everyone's support, and the event was a huge success. It wasn't until my pride was shattered that I realized how arrogant I'd been. But it was too late. Everyone was already fed up with me, and from that failure onward, I faced blatant coldness from my coworkers. There was no chance for redemption. Feeling like I couldn't stay in that company any longer, I left. And then I joined this company, vowing never to let my pride get the best of me again. Tyler? Nina's voice pulled me back to the present. She held my hand in both of hers. Her warmth chased away the chill of those old memories, filling my heart with warmth again. Thank you. I don't know what I would have done without you, Tyler. No, like I told you, I want to protect you from anything that might hurt you. I'm so glad I could be here for you. As I squeezed her hand in return, Nina's cheeks flushed as she smiled brightly. Relishing in that smile, I turned back to face Rose, who was gritting her teeth. Rose, you didn't hand the brochures to someone else, did you? I found the box hidden at the back of the archives room. Rose's face turned pale as she glanced around nervously. The other employees were all looking at her with disdain. Cornered on all sides, Rose started nervously twisting a strand of her red hair around her finger. And then, Nina stepped forward to stand in front of Rose, shielding her. There's no proof that Rose did it, right? Maybe the person she entrusted with the task hid it. No, Nina. Someone saw Rose carrying the box into the archives this morning. That's pretty solid evidence. At my words, Nina pressed her lips together tightly. Behind her, Rose shoved Nina aside, irritation plain on her face. Fine, yes, it was me. But Nina, you're always like this. Just because you're my sister, you think you can show me this protective attitude? Don't you get how much that bothers me? I can't stand feeling like you're looking down on me all the time. Sorry. Nina's voice was small as she looked away apologetically. Rose, only more agitated, glared even harder. Always hanging your head like that. It's so infuriating. How does someone bloomy like you, with that ugly scar, get more recognition than me? Rose, stop talking about Nina's scar like that. Oh, shut up. It's ugly, no matter how you look at it. Can you really say that, knowing that scar came from her protecting you? Rose gasped, her expression freezing in shock. Nina's head snapped up, her eyes wide. Tyler, please, don't bring that up. No, Nina. This needs to be said. Otherwise, Rose's arrogance and condescension toward others won't change. Nina opened her mouth, but no words came out. What are you talking about? That scar came from protecting me? Explain it to me. Rose demanded, her voice breaking. Nina seemed to make up her mind. Turning to face Rose directly. Rose, you don't remember. I never wanted you to know. I thought if you found out, you'd end up blaming yourself for taking Mom's life. Nina began to speak hesitantly, sharing the story of how she got her scar. Nina was 6 years old when Rose was born. When Rose was born, her hair was red. Neither side of Nina's family had anyone with red hair. Perhaps that was why Nina's paternal grandfather was furious. You cheated, didn't you? A child with red hair can't be my son's. That's impossible. Silence. That red hair is proof enough. Nina's mother denied it desperately, but her grandfather wouldn't listen. Nina's father, Mr. Hawkins, tried to intervene, but whenever he wasn't around, her grandfather would harass her mother. Divorce her. Or better yet, don't divorce, just abandon that child somewhere. What? How could you say that? I would never abandon my child. Nina overheard these arguments from the next room. Rose, who was still a baby, woke up from the noise and began crying loudly. Then, their grandfather entered the room. Looking down at her with hawk-like eyes, he terrified young Nina. Enough, be quiet. He picked up a nearby vase and threw it toward Rose. Instinctively, Nina threw herself in front of Rose to protect her. The edge of the vase struck Nina's forehead, leaving a large scar. She was taken to the hospital immediately. Fortunately, there was no brain injury. But she was told the scar on her forehead would remain for life. I'm so sorry, Nina. The incident weighed so heavily on their mother that, already weak from childbirth, she never recovered. When Mr. Hawkins learned of the incident, he was furious. He forced his father into early retirement, becoming the company's president, and banned his father from having any influence over either the company or the family. When Nina finished speaking, Rose's tears spilled over. Rose, you've done nothing wrong. The color of your hair has nothing to do with infidelity. Dad later discovered that he had a Scottish ancestor in his family line. That red hair is simply a genetic throwback. So, don't blame yourself. There's no need to cry. Rose shook her head fiercely. No, that's not why I'm crying. Learning what happened. I realize it was much harder for you than for me. I don't remember Mom. And her absence just felt normal because you were there for me like a mother. I never felt lonely. But it wasn't like that for you, was it? You remember Mom, don't you? You had every right to hate me, thinking I took her away from you. But instead, I treated you terribly without even knowing any of this. Sobbing, Rose was gently pulled into Nina's embrace. Rose's tears flowed even more freely. "I'm so sorry, Nina. I called you ugly, I mocked you, and I'm so sorry." As Rose's body shook with emotion, Nina softly stroked her back, almost like a mother comforting her child. 2 weeks passed after the exhibition ended, and work returned to its usual pace. "Tyler." Rose called me over to her desk. "I want you to lead the next exhibition," she said. I stammered, taken aback. All I can really do is interpret. Planning an event like that isn't my skill. "What are you talking about?" "Your team will help you." Looking around, I saw my co-workers smiling and nodding in support. Their warmth filled my chest. By the way, Nina's work at the reception has been so well received by our visitors that she'll be promoted to reception supervisor next month. "Really?" I said, smiling as pride for Nina's achievement welled up inside me. Then, Rose gave a small smile. "I want you, and everyone here, to know I'll be transferring to a branch office next month." A collective gasp filled the office. And I felt my own surprise. The branch Rose named was notorious for being an unofficial demotion. This is a deserved evaluation. Not only did I act childishly with the exhibition, but my behavior toward all of you was unworthy not only of a manager but even a decent employee. "I'm genuinely sorry," Rose said, looking down. The room fell silent. "Well then, we'll have to throw you a farewell party, Rose." Fiona's suggestion met with agreement from others. Rose looked up, her eyes wide with surprise. "We've noticed your efforts to change since the exhibition. So while we'll miss you, we'll be looking forward to your return," I added. Holding back tears, Rose pressed her lips together tightly. "Oh, and Tyler, Mr. Hawkins has asked to see you, so please go to his office afterward." My heart skipped a beat at the direct summons from Mr. Hawkins, and I felt a wave of nerves. As I walked toward his office, I ran into Nina. "Hey, Nina. Where are you off to?" "Mr. Hawkins called for me." "Funny, he called me too." "Wonder which of us should go in first." "I'll check," she replied with a smile. When we arrived, Nina went in first. And quickly returned. "Tyler, he'd like you to come in too." Following her lead, I entered with Nina at my side. "Hello, Tyler. It's been a while since your final interview. Please, have a seat." Mr. Hawkins welcomed us with a warm smile, motioning toward the sofa. I sat down, finding the seat in his office as comfortable as I'd expected. Mr. Hawkins took the seat across from me, with Nina beside him. It felt a bit like an interview. Then, Mr. Hawkins stood, placed a hand on my shoulder, and spoke. "Tyler, I owe you my gratitude. Thank you for helping mend the relationship between Nina and Rose." I didn't do anything," I stammered, standing quickly in embarrassment. When I tried to stand up while saying so in a hurry, Mr. Hawkins restrained me, looked me in the eye for a while, and then went back to his seat. "Oh, but you did. I've watched over the two of them for a long time." I knew that Rose treated Nina poorly, but there was nothing I could do. If I showed favoritism to Nina, Rose would only grow more resentful. I realize I've burdened Nina greatly, especially with the matter of her scar. But you, Tyler, you became her ally. Because of you, they've both grown. Nina has brightened up, and Rose, well, she's taking responsibility to the point of requesting her own transfer. I was impressed that Rose had taken it upon herself to ask Mr. Hawkins for the transfer when he gave me a warm smile. "I hear you're dating Nina. Knowing it's you, I feel at ease. Please, look after her in my place." "Yes, of course," I replied, straightening up with a nod, and Nina's cheeks softly flushed. After our meeting with Mr. Hawkins, even as we walked down the hallway, her cheeks were still tinged with pink. "Oh, honestly, Dad. That felt like a pre-wedding talk with the parents. Don't worry, I'll be back for the real one." At that, Nina blushed even deeper, her face now fully red. Why are you saying things like that, Tyler? Unless you don't want to marry me? No, that's not it. I want to marry you too. I've even thought we could build a home near the office and have 3 kids. Trying to sound a bit dejected, I was surprised when Nina responded so eagerly, making me laugh. You've thought it through more than I have. Oh no. I was supposed to keep that to myself, she said, realizing. No, let's talk about it more. The first kid should be a girl, right? Yeah, someone sweet, like Rose, Nina said with a smile. Well, maybe a little humbler than Rose? Oh, that's mean. Rose has changed, you know. Nina's words reassured me that she and Rose had indeed grown closer, bringing me a quiet happiness. If you act with arrogance and pride, life will eventually teach you a hard lesson. But if you can learn, reflect, and make things right, happiness will be waiting on the other side. Hand in hand, Nina and I dreamed together of that happy future. The sky stretched endlessly, clear and blue, with thin, wispy white clouds drifting through it. Every day, I found myself gazing at the sky, lost in thoughts of the one I loved most. Though 5 years have passed since then, I'm still unable to shake her memory and move forward. I drift along like one of those clouds, just floating without direction, carried by the flow. Meeting someone happens suddenly, and parting is often just as abrupt. I had promised myself I'd never marry anyone but my wife, yet I was moved by someone who looked just like her. Will you marry me? I'd completely forgotten how to love, how to smile. I locked away my emotions, sealing them tightly. But she was the one who managed to open that lock. My name is Alex. Every day, I wake up, go to work, and push through a typical routine, battling my way back home on a packed subway. Oh, right, I turned 30 the other day, but it doesn't really matter to me. It's just another year gone by, and nothing in my life has changed. Friends celebrated with me, I forced a polite smile, drank a bit, and went home to a flavorless birthday. There's a hole in my heart, one that nothing can fill. Emma, who used to be by my side every year to celebrate my birthday, isn't coming back. I met my wife, Emma, back in high school. I confessed my feelings to her under the fireworks on the last day of our school festival. And she said yes. Emma was vibrant, bright, and full of life, a woman everyone admired. Hey, Alex, your tie is crooked again. The first morning after we started living together as young professionals. I was struggling to tie my tie. Emma sighed at my fumbling but quickly helped me straighten it. You're pretty good at tying ties. Practicing on some other guy? I teased her, poking her cheek as it turned as red as a ripe apple. She puffed out her cheeks like a balloon, turned away, and mumbled an excuse. I practiced on Dad so I wouldn't mess up when I became your wife. You're the only man outside of my family I'll ever touch like this. I couldn't help but laugh at her straightforward answer. When she pouted, telling me not to laugh, I loved her even more. There was a big height difference between us, so I had to bend down to meet her eyes. When I did that, she'd blush and lean closer to me. This was our morning routine. Even after we got married, we planned to stay a loving couple, even if we had children one day. And that's why it hit me like a bolt from the blue. Emma. Oh, no, please, please, open your eyes. God can be so cruel. What had Emma or I done to deserve this? After losing her so suddenly, I lost interest in everything, sinking into a daze once I sent her off to the heavens. Friends and relatives brought me matchmaking offers, worried about me, but I turned them all down. I couldn't imagine spending my life with anyone but Emma. Even now, 5 years later, it's the same. I find myself staring blankly at the sky, watching thin, white clouds drift slowly, as if swayed by the wind. I wonder if Emma is somewhere beyond that sky. What would she think if she saw me like this now? Day after day, I'm consumed by my memories of Emma, and they weigh down on me, slowly dragging me into a bottomless pit. Perhaps noticing my state, my boss, Tom, suggested something to me. He offered me a 1-year transfer to a branch office in the countryside, starting next month. He described it as a place rich in greenery, with fresh air and a sky full of stars at night. There's a beautiful avenue lined with cherry trees, a bright and sunny beach. The sound of autumn insects you hardly hear in the city, along with winter skies as clear as glass. Tom reminisced about his hometown as he described the healing power of the natural beauty there. Something he thought might soothe my burnt-out spirit. Feeling guilty for causing even my colleagues to worry, I decided to accept the offer. I had been considering moving for a while. Staying here, I couldn't escape Emma's lingering presence. Even at home, I could find no peace. Emma was supposed to be my beloved wife, yet over time, her memory had come to haunt me, like a curse that darkened my heart. If I stay this way, I won't even know how to face her when I see her again someday. Not wanting to turn my cherished wife into a restless spirit, I chose to leave this place. Although I could have taken a company-provided apartment, I preferred to avoid seeing my co-workers outside of work. They all knew my story, and I didn't want their sympathetic glances. People at the new branch probably wouldn't know about my past, but shaking off the weight of my memories would still take time. I decided to find a place where I'd have as little contact with my colleagues as possible. With the company's housing allowance, I rented an apartment I found on my own. Excuse me. A soft voice reached my ears. My name's Rachel, and I live next door. Nice to meet you. My first impression of her was that she seemed terribly shy, almost like a ghost fading into the background. Her long bangs even made it hard to read any expression on her face. But since she greeted me, I had no choice but to reply. I'm Alex. Nice to meet you too. With that, Rachel quickly bowed and scurried back to her apartment. Since then, for some reason, she'd let out a small gasp whenever she saw me, treating me almost as if I were the ghost. Did I do something wrong? Wondering about it, I settled into life here, and soon 3 months had passed. Eventually, Rachel seemed to get used to my presence. She began greeting me, albeit in a soft, nearly inaudible voice. I'm sorry if I was rude at first. I'm a bit nervous around people. Perhaps it was some form of social anxiety. If so, her timid behavior made sense, and there was no need for me to think too much about it. Then, one day, as I was heading home straight from work, I heard raised voices in front of our apartment building. I didn't know the man, but the woman's voice was unmistakably Rachel's. I didn't want to get involved in any trouble, but the atmosphere was tense, and I couldn't ignore it. Do you need something from her? When I asked, both of them turned to look at me. Rachel let out a small gasp, and the man, flustered, quickly left. I'd always been over 6 feet tall, and though I wasn't aware of it, people often said I had a stern look. Emma used to tell me, "You're misunderstood a lot, but you're such a kind person, Alex." The man caught sight of me, then hurriedly disappeared from view. Rachel then bowed her head. Thank you for helping me." Seeing her looking apologetic, I decided not to press her about the incident. There've been reports of strange men around here lately. It might be dangerous for you to go out alone. I gave her that warning and was about to head back to my room when I felt a strange pull, something stopping me. You said the other day that you'd let me thank you sometime. So, could I ask now? That day, she must mean a few days ago. I'd been thinking of Emma, getting dangerously close to a spiral, and ended up drinking alone at a bar after work. I just wanted to forget to erase this feeling somehow. Out of guilt towards Emma, I found myself wishing that this heaviness in my heart would just disappear. Barely managing to get home, my vision blurred, I struggled to get my keys from my bag. With a heavy sigh, I slumped against my door. I'll stay here and let the night breeze cool my head until I sober up a bit. I must have fallen asleep because the next thing I knew, I was waking up, feeling as if I were being dragged. Oh, you're awake. It turned out Rachel had found me asleep outside my door, retrieved my keys, and was helping me inside. I'm sorry. I can manage from here. I'll repay you for this someday. After that, I blacked out, waking up the next morning with a hangover I deeply regretted. Rachel must be talking about that night. When I looked back, Rachel was lightly holding onto the edge of my sleeve. If it's not too much trouble, would you have dinner at my place? Her face was still hidden under her long bangs, as unreadable as ever. But this time, Rachel, who usually never voiced her own opinions, was expressing one for the first time. Would that really be a thank you? It almost feels like I'd owe you again. At my words, she lowered her head, looking a bit troubled. Her hair cascaded over her face, concealing it even further. With a silent sigh, I turned fully toward her. Are you still afraid of me? She gave a small shudder, and her pale fingers gripping my sleeve trembled slightly. Emma used to brush it off, but given my height and my somewhat intimidating expression, I must seem daunting. Especially to someone as small as Rachel. I chuckled wryly, remembering how even my female co-workers used to say I looked intimidating. Then, as the big guy I am, I looked down at her, noticing how she seemed to shrink slightly under my gaze. To meet her eyes, I slowly bent down. Even though I tried to make eye contact, her hair fell in the way, making it hard to see her eyes. I didn't want to make her more nervous, so I spoke gently. I have no reason to refuse. I haven't done any grocery shopping today, so if you're offering, I'd be grateful. If that's what you'd like, Rachel. As I said this, I thought I saw a faint smile on her face. And with it, a strange feeling began to settle in my chest. I'd never been swayed by a woman's words before, so I couldn't quite understand why Rachel's words affected me now. Perhaps it was just that I felt unable to leave someone who seemed so fragile to face things alone. I decided to accept this feeling for what it was and let it pass. Upon entering her apartment, though, something felt off right away. In the shoe rack sat a pair of men's shoes, and a large suit jacket hung neatly on the rack by the door. Spotless and carefully maintained, it was clear someone else lived here. The coffee cup Rachel handed me was also a matching pair, hinting at the presence of a man in her life. And there it was again. That same strange feeling, now morphing into something darker, closer to resentment. No, I have no right to feel this way. I'd sworn to always love Emma, hadn't I? Silencing my own conflicting thoughts, I took another look around. It was clear now that someone else shared this space. I'd assumed Rachel lived alone, but evidently, I was wrong. I'd only ever seen her coming and going by herself, and there was never any sign of a man. So, then, a semi-live-in situation, perhaps? If you have a partner, wouldn't he be uncomfortable with you inviting someone like me over? I'd be fine with a different way of saying thanks, if that's the case. The question itself held no ulterior motive, it was just something I asked directly. So why did my words falter at the end? Well, had I said something offensive without realizing it? The thought made me uneasy for a moment. I noticed small droplets falling by Rachel's feet. It was as if all the emotions she had been holding back were now overflowing, forming a small puddle there. For some reason, I had made her cry. Realizing this, I quickly apologized. I'm sorry. I didn't mean it in a strange way. But Rachel shook her head slowly and heavily. No, it's not that. Despite her words, her tears continued to fall, unchecked. Realizing this wasn't going anywhere, I gently guided her to sit on the sofa. She settled down quietly, her eyes tightly shut as if trying to endure something. Seeing her like that, I found myself unexpectedly projecting my own experiences onto her. For a while, I watched her from a short distance, glancing at my phone as I kept an eye on her until she calmed down. I figured she wouldn't want to be stared at while she was crying, so this was my own clumsy way of being considerate. Aren't you supposed to say something comforting in times like these? A voice drifted through my mind. Emma wasn't here, and no matter where I searched in this world, I'd never find her again. Still, even if she had been here, Rachel and I were nothing more than neighbors, nothing more or less. So I just stayed quiet, doing the only thing I felt I could, waiting. A few minutes later, her sobs finally began to subside, and she spoke quietly. "I'm sorry you had to see that." "No, it's fine." In my usual, unthinking way, that was all I could say. The silence that followed filled the room, resonating against the walls bathed in the amber light of sunset, broken only by the sound of our breathing. After a while, Rachel looked up slightly. "The photo on that shelf." Following her gaze, I saw a framed photo of a couple. The man looked down at the woman with a gentle, affectionate gaze. The woman, modestly yet affectionately, wrapped her hand around his waist and looked up at him with eyes full of love. In a subdued tone, Rachel spoke. "That's my husband. He passed away." Her words hit me hard, tightening something in my chest. The presence I'd sensed here wasn't just some imagined feeling, it was the lingering traces of her late husband. "I believe, Alex, you also lost your wife before her time, didn't you?" I vaguely remembered mentioning it in passing to one of the older ladies in the neighborhood. She had asked why I still wore a ring on my left hand, and when I explained, she'd looked at me with sympathy. I'd never wanted anyone's pity, which is why I usually kept quiet about it, but I hadn't expected her to remember. "It's been 5 years now. I'm just a man who can't seem to move on, clinging to the memory of his wife. If anything, I'd prefer if people laughed it off rather than pitying me for it." I slowly closed my eyes. Whenever I did, Emma's bright smile and the sound of her laughter came to mind, vivid like sunlight. Maybe, no matter what, I'll never be able to forget her. Then, as if sensing the thoughts swirling inside me, Rachel spoke, cutting right to the heart of it. "Even after rising to the heavens, would a spouse truly be happy to know that the one they left behind can't let go of them?" I opened my eyes. As my feelings for Emma gradually transformed into a lingering attachment, binding me, could I still call it love? I couldn't answer Rachel's question. To think that Rachel, too, had lost her beloved partner. And, like me, she hadn't been able to break free from the sorrow of that loss, continuing her life on autopilot. My husband passed away 3 years ago. Since that day, this room has been frozen in time. His suit, his bag, his shoes. Everything remains exactly as it was. I haven't been able to escape that moment. She couldn't bring herself to clear away his belongings because it would make his absence feel final, leaving her too heartbroken to handle his possessions. I understood that feeling all too well. Even though I'd moved here, I still kept my place in New York. And besides, I've left all of Emma's belongings just as they were. I could now see why Rachel had left her husband's things as they were and why she held on to such heavy emotions. And yet, there was one thing I couldn't understand. You still think about him, don't you? So why invite me here? Rachel looked at me with a resolute expression, and, seemingly without reason, she said, "Please, marry me." She tilted her head slightly to the side, and her heavy bangs slowly followed the pull of gravity, drifting softly. Then, one dark, hollow eye devoid of any highlight fixed intently on me. It was as if I were being watched by a predator. My body froze, unable to move. Her eyes held a color that was uniquely haunting. They looked like the endless depths of darkness, as if all dreams and hopes for tomorrow had been drained. The eyes of someone familiar with despair. I recognized them immediately. Once, after losing Emma, I looked in the mirror for the first time and saw my own eyes. Rachel now had those same eyes. I swallowed hard and managed to speak. "What do you mean by that? We've only known each other a short time, and we're not even together. So why bring up marriage all of a sudden?" As if anticipating my reaction, Rachel replied in a calm voice. "We should use each other. So, please, let me use you, and use me in return." I couldn't look away from her eyes. And just like that, a week passed. I barely remembered what happened after that. We had dinner together, exchanged few words, and I returned to my apartment. But all night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't stop thinking about her proposal. The shock of her sudden offer to marry was one thing, but her words about using each other. I hadn't fully grasped what she meant, and I ended up declining her proposal, at least for the time being. But that night continued to haunt me, replaying in my mind even at work. No matter how much I thought about it, no clear answer emerged, and time marched on relentlessly. Lately, work had kept me busy, with little chance to go home, staying overnight at the office or at nearby hotels. Occasionally, I'd swing by my place to pick up some belongings, usually well past midnight. Before I knew it, 2 months had flown by since that strange proposal. This hectic schedule meant I naturally hadn't seen Rachel at all. And yet, inexplicably, I found myself thinking, I want to see Rachel. Unlike the superficial relationships I had back in New York, I'd connected with various people since moving here. But the person I'd spent the most meaningful time with was my neighbor, Rachel. I didn't realize you look so beautiful when you smile, Alex. I remembered the day she said that, and the memory constricted my chest. Somehow, I'd found myself smiling naturally in her presence, even though I'd forgotten how to. There was no question about what those feelings meant. That evening had created a rift, but little by little, I'd started to become aware of my feelings for her. That was precisely why her sudden proposal had thrown me, making me feel I needed time and distance to think. Fortunately, I could use work as a legitimate excuse to keep that distance. But at the same time, I was beginning to lose the confidence to face her directly. I worried that the next time I met her gaze, I might lose myself and be overcome by some impulse I couldn't control. Wasn't this a betrayal of Emma? The thought knotted me, and without realizing it, I'd started avoiding Rachel. It was pathetic. But if I looked into those eyes again, I was certain. From within, an intense passion pounds loudly, knocking. It commands me, let it out now. Somehow, without realizing it, my feelings for Rachel had grown so intense that they scared me. I wanted to see her smile, to be the one to wipe away those sorrowful tears. Yet, the only person I'm supposed to love is Emma. For 5 years, I tried to lock my heart away, sealing it under the weight of self-imposed vows. No matter how many times people brought up marriage prospects, I'd rejected them, determined to spend my remaining days with Emma's memory alone. And yet, now, my emotions were surging from within, demanding to break free. I had to keep any love I felt sealed for Emma alone. The inner struggle tore at me, leaving me in a constant state of indecision. No, with these feelings, I don't know what I might do. I can't meet Rachel yet. I spoke the words aloud, as if trying to convince myself. Even so, the day would inevitably come when I'd return home, once the work settled down. And that day turned out to be a turning point. When I finally returned to the apartment, as if on cue, Rachel stepped out of her room. Her pale lips began to move slowly. Have you made your decision? I was about to say that I couldn't possibly have reached one, but the words stopped short. A tightness gripped my chest, as if my heart were being squeezed. Rachel pushed her long bangs aside, her fingers brushing over her face. If I do this, would it shake your resolve? The seconds that followed felt unbearably long. The pressure in my chest grew stronger, and I realized my breathing had grown shallow. I was utterly shaken. Emma. In a hoarse voice, I uttered the name of my beloved. To Rachel, and no one else. Standing before me was undoubtedly Rachel. There was no doubt. I knew it with 100% certainty. And yet, what I saw was Emma. The surreal image made my head spin, and I instinctively covered half my face with one hand. What's happening? She's gone. Am I so exhausted that I'm hallucinating now? It had been so long since my heart had felt this unsteady. Like that day, when I traced my fingers over Emma's cold cheek. Unsure of what to do, tears began to spill from my eyes. And then, Rachel delivered the final blow. Please, marry me. How much time passed after that? I don't know. Minutes, maybe hours? The sun had long since set, and the warm glow of a single light filled the room where we stood. In the end, I married the woman who was, in so many ways, a reflection of my beloved wife. To put it simply, I don't regret it, but my emotions are tangled, and my thoughts haven't caught up. Emma is gone, a presence forever beyond my reach. I knew that in my mind, but seeing Rachel smile at me so beautifully, so effortlessly capturing my heart, the passion I'd held back had finally overflowed. And in that instant, I came to a single conclusion. Standing beside me was Rachel, still hiding her expression under long bangs. It must have surprised you, but I'm actually Emma's twin sister. I remembered Emma mentioning it once. My parents divorced when I was young, and I was too young to remember, but I found out later that I had a sister. To think that this twin sister, the one I'd thought of as only a distant part of Emma's past, was standing right here as Rachel. Though Rachel had a different air about her, she and Emma were identical twins, and the shock of that resemblance hit me deeply. I have no connection with my sister. I only learned the name Emma when I obtained a copy of the family registry while getting married. One day, though, I found you slumped outside the door, terribly drunk. I heard you murmur, "Emma," in that moment. When I was helping you inside and looked for your keys, I noticed a photo in your keychain, and there I was, or rather, my sister. Rachel took a breath and went on. "You can use me if you need to. I'm the long-lost sister of your beloved Emma. And I need you to help me move forward from my husband's death. That's why I need this marriage." As she spoke, Rachel took a pair of hair-cutting scissors from somewhere and handed them to me. After my husband passed, I couldn't bear the sympathetic looks everyone gave me. So I grew my bangs out to hide my emotions and protect myself. Could you, with those hands of yours, help cut away these remnants of my past? Why me? I did love Emma, and you're her identical twin. But you have no reason to use me, do you? If it's a man you wanted, there are plenty of others out there. So why? She remained completely still. She exuded an air that all but said, "If you want to know more, do exactly as I've instructed." Reluctantly, I took the scissors and moved my fingers as directed, cutting through her bangs. Bit by bit, the heavy veil that had covered her face fell away. A few minutes later, she slowly lifted her head, and for the first time, I looked directly into both of her eyes. She was indeed the mirror image of Emma, but unlike Emma's bright and lively spirit, she radiated a deep melancholy. And yet, as I saw her, the image of the one I had loved overlapped with hers, overwhelming me with emotions and leaving me frozen, unable to move. Is this face too painful for you to look at? I'll tell you everything. Can you stand up? I took her hand and guided her to the sofa. In the next moment, Rachel placed her hands on the floor, aligning her fingertips precisely, and pressed her forehead down against them. She had taken on a posture of complete submission. It was the first time. After losing my husband, you were the only man who looked at me without pity, seeing me as an equal. I am, without a doubt, drawn to you, Alex. I deeply regret that I pushed you into marriage, taking advantage of the wound left by my sister. But I can't shake the feeling that, finally, I'm ready to move forward. With you, a person who's felt the same pain, I want to join hands and dare to dream of a hopeful future once more. Hearing her say all that, I let out a dry laugh. It wasn't out of mockery, I was just exasperated with myself for making her say those things. Marriage, people often do it on impulse. Whether it's a mistake or success, you don't know until later. Please, Rachel, sit up. She flinched at the sound of her name. Yes, it's true, I looked at you and saw Emma, my beloved wife. That's an undeniable fact. But there's one thing I want to make absolutely clear. I, too, hold feelings for you deep within my heart. I've kept my love for anyone sealed away, buried under thoughts of Emma. But I've wanted to set it free. And it was you, Rachel, who unlocked it. Just as she had helped me into my apartment that night, she had somehow slipped into the depths of my heart, bringing back emotions I thought I'd buried. I ran away that day, not because of Emma, but because I felt I owed you an apology. Someone like me shouldn't be feeling this way. I love you. But it feels wrong to keep loving you. I've been struggling with this conflict for so long. We had both been broken by grief, each bearing our own deep scars. In the beginning, it was just about sharing that understanding. But somewhere along the way, we had started to long for each other, reaching out even more than we had to our late spouses. It's been 5 years since I lost Emma. I'll never forget her, but if I continue to keep myself trapped, I feel like she'd be angry with me. I think she'd want me to move forward, to take the chance at happiness. I've been afraid of grasping it. But with you, someone who's also hurt like me, I feel like I might find the courage to reach for it again. This marriage was my choice, too. While it may have begun impulsively and with hesitation, I knew now that I truly loved Rachel. Not as Emma's replacement, but as someone unique and precious in her own right, someone I wanted to protect. I don't know where this path will take us, but sometimes it's best to go with the flow. You're not Emma, you're Rachel, someone worth cherishing. And I swear here and now, I will never use you. Will you give me your answer? I felt the corners of my mouth lift into a gentle smile. How long had it been since I genuinely smiled? My days with Emma had been full of joy, but in losing her, I'd lost the very memory of how to smile. Meeting Rachel had changed that, bringing back the courage to love again. I remembered what it felt like to laugh. Gently, I wrapped my arms around her small, trembling form, careful not to break her. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I should have just told you from the start that I cared for you, Alex. But I was scared. Please, don't hate me. She whispered, her voice barely audible. Holding her a bit more tightly, I felt her small body stop trembling. Thank you for caring about me. And thank you for teaching me to love again. We had both been wounded and had faced our own despair. Perhaps that's why Emma and her husband had brought us together, guiding us to each other. Humans are such fleeting creatures. Once we are born, it's only natural that we will someday pass away. But that doesn't mean it's a final goodbye. Even when the body fades, and we can no longer see each other in this life, the heart remains connected, a thin, unbroken thread that stretches on. And through that connection, new hope and encounters can be born. For Emma, I resolved to face forward and take that step, fully aware of the new person I'd sworn to protect this time. Slowly, I leaned in, casting a shadow over her face. I thought I told useless people like you to eat in the restroom. What are you doing here? Kevin, the HR manager, spat these words at Melanie, the new recruit. Tears welled up in Melanie's eyes, and she quickly looked down. I watched the scene unfold from the corner of the hallway near the restroom. My name is Kyle Thompson, 45. I'm the president of this company. I just returned to the Japan headquarters after 5 years overseas, and no one has recognized me yet. Hey, what do you think you're doing? I called out to Kevin. Oh, and who might you be? Another new recruit? No, I'm Kyle Thompson, the president. Kevin's face turned pale. What? President, Mr. Thompson? No way. Yes. I just returned after 5 years. Now, what was that comment you just made? Kevin hastily began to explain. Well, it's just part of the training for new employees. Training? Making someone eat in the restroom is what you call training? I couldn't contain my anger and raised my voice. Melanie, is that your name? Come over here, please. Melanie approached timidly, and I spoke to her in a gentle tone. Melanie, can you tell me how you ended up joining us? Yes. I studied computer science in college and applied through your innovation recruitment program. It was a tough exam, but I somehow passed. I see. And how have you been treated since joining? After hesitating, Melanie answered in a small voice. Actually, it's been 2 months since I joined, but I haven't been given any programming work yet. Every day. I'm assigned menial tasks around the office. And today, I was told to eat lunch in the restroom. I felt my anger boiling over. Turning to Kevin, I questioned him in a severe tone. Kevin, explain yourself. Why is an employee recruited through the innovation program being treated like this? Kevin began to rattle off excuses. Well, you see, there's a reason. New hires lack social skills, so we need to start with strict, foundational training. Foundational training? Disrespecting a person's dignity isn't training. Melanie, gather your things immediately and come to my office. You'll have lunch there. A look of shock appeared on Melanie's face. Really? Are you sure? Of course. And starting this afternoon, you'll be transferred to a department where you can fully utilize your abilities. But, Mr. Thompson, isn't this a bit abrupt? Kevin, gather all employees in the conference room immediately. There's an important announcement. Kevin nodded slightly, looking pale. Melanie, let's go. This company's purpose is to recognize and foster talent, and that's exactly how it should be. Tears glistened in Melanie's eyes. But this time, they were tears of hope. I will bring this company back to being a place where every employee is respected and can fully unleash their talents. That is my mission now that I've returned after 5 years. I am the founder and president of Tech Innovation Inc. 15 years ago, while working as an engineer at a major IT company, I grew uncomfortable with the old mindset of judging people solely by their education or background. Seeing young people with talent denied opportunities just because they hadn't followed the official route only strengthened my desire to create a company where everyone could maximize their potential. So, with like-minded colleagues, I founded Tech Innovation. We made it a policy to disregard educational backgrounds, relying solely on merit, and have since welcomed diverse individuals, including those who taught themselves programming and those transitioning from other industries. As a result, we cultivated a culture of creativity, gaining attention within the industry. 5 years ago, I went to the US to expand our operations, immersing myself in the effort to build new markets. In my absence, I had entrusted the Japan headquarters to Travis, our vice president. I never imagined things would turn out like this. In the US, I experienced Silicon Valley's forward-thinking culture and management values that emphasize diversity, reaffirming the importance of our own company's principles. I also became acutely aware of how far behind Japanese corporate culture lags. Upon my return, I headed directly from the airport to the headquarters, quietly entering the company to avoid drawing attention. What I saw there was a company culture that had drifted drastically from my original vision. Our founding principles had faded, replaced by outdated practices like elitism and seniority-based hierarchy. And Kevin, the HR manager, was the worst offender. As my anger swelled, so did a strong sense of duty. I need to change this company and perhaps even the Japanese corporate culture itself. I must rebuild a place where talented young people can soar freely. With that resolve, I began preparing for a major overhaul of the company. Armed with the international perspective and experience I'd gained over the past 5 years, I'm ready to transform Tech Innovation into a truly innovative company. That's my responsibility as its founder. The emergency meeting I called for all employees had begun. The air in the conference room was tense. Standing on the stage, I spoke quietly but firmly. Ladies and gentlemen, I am deeply disappointed to see how far our company's principles have been distorted during my 5-year absence. The crowd murmured in surprise. I could see Kevin's face grow even paler. Today, I witnessed our new employee, Melanie, being ordered to eat lunch in the restroom. This is an affront to human dignity. Gasps filled the room. Voices of shock rippled through the employees. Furthermore, I discovered that many young employees who joined through our innovation recruitment program are being prevented from using their talents. This goes against our company's principles and is absolutely unacceptable. I paused, then directed my gaze at Kevin. Kevin, come up to the stage. With trembling legs, Kevin climbed onto the stage. Kevin, how do you intend to explain this situation? Well, it's all part of training for the new employees, to teach them basic workplace skills. Training? Basic skills? Bullying people isn't training. Crushing the potential of talented young people isn't basic skills. My voice echoed through the conference room. Kevin was left speechless, standing frozen in place. Kevin, you are immediately relieved of your duties as HR manager. And for the next month, you will perform the same tasks as the new employees. During that time, you will relearn what this company's principles truly stand for. Kevin's face turned ashen. The crowd was visibly shocked. And to all employees, starting today, this company will be reborn. We will no longer judge people by their educational background or age, but by pure ability and passion. This company will be a place where everyone can freely unleash their creativity. That is the true vision of tech innovation. A small round of applause began and gradually grew louder. The young employees' eyes began to shine. I will announce specific reforms soon. In the meantime, any employees who have experienced unfair treatment should come directly to me. I will listen to every concern and take appropriate action. The meeting ended, and Kevin left the room with slumped shoulders. Anger and shame were visible in his retreating figure. But this is just the beginning. Resistance from the old guard is bound to intensify from here. Internally, I steeled myself for the difficult battles that lay ahead. A week had passed since the emergency meeting. I had been fully immersed in designing a new HR system. It is about developing a system to fairly assess employees' abilities and place them in roles that best match their skills. That afternoon, Travis, the vice president, came into my office. "Mr. Thompson, may I have a moment?" "Ah, Travis, what's on your mind?" Travis looked tense, clearly struggling with something he needed to say. "Actually, some board members have raised concerns about Kevin's situation." "Oh? And what concerns would those be?" "Well, they feel that Kevin's sudden demotion was excessive. Given his years of service, they believe there might have been a more measured approach." I frowned. Years of service? Bullying employees and crushing the potential of young talent counts as years of service? Yes, I agree it's a problem. But Kevin may have had his own perspective on. Perspective? What kind of excuse could possibly justify violating a person's dignity? Travis fell silent. "Travis, you were the vice president, responsible for this company while I was away. Why did you allow this situation to fester?" "I'm sorry. I should have seen it. But the numbers were good, and..." "Numbers? Are you saying it's acceptable to abandon our principles just to meet short-term targets?" Travis blushed and looked down. "Understood. Call in all the board members. Right now." Travis quickly left the room. I let out a deep sigh and looked out the window. The future of this company depends on what I do now. I have to resolve this issue at its core. An hour later, the emergency board meeting was convened. As I entered the conference room, tension filled the air. The seasoned directors scrutinized me with calculating eyes. "So, I hear there are opinions on Kevin's disciplinary action?" One of the older board members, Carl, spoke up. "Mr. Thompson, I do think Kevin's demotion was harsh. He has been a valuable contributor to our HR operations for many years." A valuable contributor? By bullying employees and suppressing talent? Another board member, Samuel, interjected. "Mr. Thompson, abrupt changes like this could destabilize the company. Many of our clients and partners value the long-standing relationships they've had with us. Losing experienced employees like Kevin might impact those connections." I took a deep breath and began to speak, calmly yet firmly. "Ladies and gentlemen, why does this company exist? Is it for short-term gains? Or to change the world through innovative ideas? The room fell silent. Kevin's actions fundamentally oppose our company's core values. If we allow people like him to remain unchecked, genuine talent will never come here. And as for the rest of you, why have you tolerated this situation for the past 5 years? Does profitability justify anything? The directors averted their eyes. However, one of the younger board members, Tony, spoke up. Mr. Thompson is right. I've had doubts about this situation for a long time myself. But nobody had the courage to speak up. Thank you, Tony. I'm glad there are people here who share my views. But Carl spoke again. Mr. Thompson, Kevin's methods certainly have their issues. However, he also has a wealth of experience. Isn't there a way we could use that experience, perhaps by re-educating him instead of cutting him off completely? Carl, experience does matter. But when that experience is misapplied, isn't it more of a liability? Even so, Mr. Thompson, wouldn't be disregarding a long-serving employee like Kevin harm overall morale? On the contrary, Samuel. The morale suffers far more when talented young employees are oppressed and their potential crushed. A heavy silence settled over the conference room. But the older faction of the board members showed clear signs of anger on their faces. In contrast, the younger director's eyes sparkled with hope. Ladies and gentlemen, from this day forward, we will root out the old ways. Anyone who cannot accept this will need to leave the leadership. This is the final notice. Wait. Mr. Thompson, isn't that authoritarian? Authoritarian? No, this is reform. A vital reform grounded in our company's core values. I support Mr. Thompson's stance. If we don't act, we'll end up losing our best talent. Thank you, Tony. Does anyone else have a comment? The room fell silent. The board members exchanged glances, as if making a collective decision. Very well. Let's put it to a vote. Those in favor of maintaining Kevin's disciplinary action and moving forward with these reforms, please raise your hand. Slowly, but surely, hands went up. In the end, a majority of the board signaled their agreement. It's settled. Starting tomorrow, we will begin drafting a new plan for reform. A structure that maximizes every employee's potential and drives true innovation. As the meeting concluded, the board members filed out. Travis, the last to leave, approached me. Mr. Thompson, I also want to apologize. From here on, I'll fully support these reforms. Good. I'll need your strength, Travis. After Travis left, I gazed out the window. The sunset sky seemed to herald a new era. I know the waves this decision will stir up. But there's no turning back. The future of this company, and of the talented young people within it, depends on this. Strengthening my resolve, I prepared for the battles to come. 2 weeks passed since the ultimatum in the boardroom. The reforms were progressing steadily, but resistance from the old faction had only grown fiercer. Then, a shocking report landed on my desk. Mr. Thompson, we have a serious issue. We've received information that Kevin is attempting to take company secrets out of the building. What? Tell me everything. Yes, it seems Kevin is trying to leak personal data of employees hired through the innovation program, along with details of our upcoming projects, to an outside source. I felt my anger flare. Do we have proof? Yes. Our IT department detected suspicious data access and traced it to Kevin's account, where we found large-scale data downloads. Damn, bring him to my office. Now. 30 minutes later, Kevin was brought into my office. His face was pale, and he was visibly shaken. Kevin, I understand you're attempting to leak our company's confidential information externally. What are you talking about? I would never. We have the evidence. Suspicious data access has been detected from your account. Explain yourself. For a moment, Kevin was at a loss for words, but he quickly put on a defiant expression. So what? Mr. Thompson, I can't just stand by and watch while your reckless reforms ruin this company. What did you say? You're tearing down everything we've spent years building. I can't allow that. I'll use this information to put a stop to your recklessness. I struggled to keep my anger in check, determined to respond calmly. Kevin, you clearly don't understand. What we built was not about stifling talent. It was about fostering innovation. Don't make me laugh. You think this company can run on lofty ideals? No, Kevin, you're the one who's laughable. Do you realize how many talents have been wasted because of your mentality? Shh. Kevin, you have two choices here. 1. You return all the information immediately and resign. 2. I report this to the authorities. And legal action will follow. Which will it be? Kevin's face turned ghostly white. With trembling hands, he pulled out a USB drive and placed it on the desk. This is everything. I'll never. Understood. Submit your resignation immediately, and don't ever set foot in this company again. Kevin slumped as he left the room, his back heavy with the weight of defeat and shame. I let out a deep sigh. One obstacle was now removed, but the battle was far from over. In fact, the true struggle was just beginning. Determined to transform this company into a truly innovative organization, I steeled myself for what lay ahead. A week after Kevin's resignation, I announced an innovation contest open to all employees. The contest was designed as a platform where anyone, regardless of position or background, could freely propose ideas. Ladies and gentlemen, for the next month, we'll be holding the Building the Future Innovation Contest. Exceptional ideas will immediately become projects, and the proposers will be appointed as project leaders. The room buzzed with excitement. The eyes of the younger employees lit up with anticipation. Educational background, career history, and seniority will have no bearing on this. We'll judge purely based on innovation and feasibility. Then, I made a surprise announcement. And we've invited renowned venture capitalists and entrepreneurs from outside to serve as judges, ensuring a truly merit-based evaluation. The older directors of the traditionalist faction could not hide their unease at this news. 2 weeks into the contest, we had an overwhelming number of entries. Applications poured in, particularly from younger employees who had previously felt stifled. One day, Melanie visited my office. Mr. Thompson, do you have a moment? Of course, Melanie. What's on your mind? Well, I'd like to discuss a project I submitted for the contest. All right, let's hear it. Melanie began to explain, looking a bit nervous. Her proposal was to develop a platform using AI technology to support employment for people with disabilities. I was taken aback by the originality of her idea. This is an incredible idea. Why were you hesitant to bring it forward? Well, Kevin once told me, don't even think of such an ambitious project. Ridiculous. This is exactly the kind of innovation we need. Submit it with confidence. Tears glistened in Melanie's eyes. And Melanie, if this project is approved, I'd like you to lead it. Me? But I'm still. You'll be fine. With your passion and skills, you'll make it happen. I'll give you my full support. With tears of gratitude, Melanie bowed deeply. On the final day of the contest, we held a presentation with the external judges present. Melanie's project won the grand prize. Several other groundbreaking ideas from young employees also received high praise. As today's results show, there was incredible talent lying dormant within our company. From this day forward, we'll immediately initiate these projects. The room was filled with excitement and hope. The traditionalist directors were visibly taken aback by the young employees' achievements. For the first time, I felt a tangible sense of progress toward a bright future. A month had passed since the success of the innovation contest. Projects like Melanie's AI-based employment support platform and others spearheaded by young employees were already underway, bringing new energy into the company. However, resistance from the traditionalist faction continued. One day, Travis visited my office. "Mr. Thompson, we've received a complaint from a major client, Sonic Technology." "What's the nature of the complaint?" "They say the approach from the new project teams is very different from before. They feel that the younger employees are too prominent and that it lacks the reliability they've come to expect." I frowned. This was something we anticipated. "Got it. I'll reach out directly to Mr. Walsh, the president of Sonic Technology." "But Mr. Thompson, Mr. Walsh is known for being an old-school manager. Do you think he'll be open to understanding our new, youth-driven approach?" "That's exactly why I need to explain it directly. Innovation can't happen if we're afraid of change." "True. However, Sonic Technology makes up 20% of our revenue. Losing them would have a huge impact on the company." "I understand. That's why it's crucial they see the need for change as well." The next day, I visited Sonic Technology. As I waited in the meeting room, Mr. Walsh walked in. "Hey there, Mr. Thompson. Long time no see." "Good to see you again, Mr. Walsh. Thank you for making time to meet." "Mr. Thompson, I must admit, I'm baffled by the recent changes in your company. Are you sure it's wise to let young folks take the lead?" "Mr. Walsh, it's actually the old ways that have been holding us back. Suppressing young talent stifles innovation before it even begins." "But isn't it risky to entrust important projects to inexperienced youth?" "In our industry, experience and connections are everything. Experience is valuable, no doubt. But relying solely on it limits the creation of new value. The fresh perspectives of the younger generation, paired with their understanding of the latest technologies, are exactly what's needed for the future." I see your point. But how exactly do you intend to change things? For example, let me share about an innovative solution proposed by our new team. I began explaining the predictive analytics system our team had developed, using AI and big data. This system had the potential to significantly improve Sonic Technology's production efficiency. With this system, we can predict production line issues in advance and optimize maintenance schedules. By linking it with market trends, we can also dramatically improve demand forecasting. Mr. Walsh's eyes began to light up with interest. "Interesting. I'll admit, this sounds compelling. But I'm still a bit uneasy. Implementing a new, untested system right away in our main facility. Your concern is completely understandable. How about this? We could start with a small test project and assess the results before fully implementing it. If it doesn't deliver, I'll take full responsibility." "Oh, you're that confident?" "Yes. I have complete trust in our young talent." After some deep thought, Mr. Walsh nodded slowly. "All right. Under those conditions, I'll give your new team a chance. However, I want regular updates on the project. And remember, if there's any issue, we may halt it immediately." "Thank you. I'm confident you'll see great results." Back at the office, I immediately gathered the new team. "Everyone, the project with Sonic Technology is officially a go. This is your chance to prove yourselves. Give it everything you've got." The team leader, Melanie, stepped forward. "Thank you, Mr. Thompson. We'll make this a success." The young team's eyes shone with determination. "But keep this in mind, this project isn't just about delivering a system. Building trust with Sonic Technology's employees is equally important. Listen carefully to their concerns and work together to find solutions." "Understood." We'll focus on both the technical and relational aspects. Good, I'm counting on you. Let's get started. 1 week after the project began, Melanie gave her first report. Mr. Thompson, I visited Sonic Technology's site. The resistance from the staff was stronger than expected. What kind of reaction did you get? Many were saying things like, "What do these young kids know, and our current methods work just fine." The strongest pushback came from mid-level employees. I see. They probably feel as if their experience and knowledge are being dismissed. Yes. What should we do? Melanie, listen closely to their concerns and fears. Show them exactly how the new system can make their work easier and more efficient. Don't turn them into adversaries, instead, work to bring them on our side. Understood. I'll rethink our approach. The project continued to face various challenges. System glitches, data alignment issues, and security concerns surfaced one after another. However, the young team addressed each problem earnestly, solving them one by one. Then, 2 months after the project's start, the test project results came in. Mr. Thompson, we have the results. How did it turn out? The results exceeded expectations. Production efficiency increased by 15%, and the defect rate dropped by 5%. Plus, the reduction in downtime from preventive maintenance was significant. That's fantastic. How did Sonic Technology react? Yes. I received a call from Mr. Walsh himself. He said he was awakened to new possibilities. Well done, Melanie. This is the result of the entire team's hard work. Thank you. But there are still some challenges. What kind of challenges? Yes. There's room for improvement in system operations. Also, we're still hearing some resistance from certain employees at Sonic Technology. I see. Instead of aiming for perfection, we should keep focusing on continuous improvement. Tackling these challenges one by one will help us build even more trust. Understood. We'll keep pushing forward. This success quickly became big news in the industry. The news of a young, innovation-driven approach succeeding spread rapidly, boosting our company's reputation. A few days later, I got a direct call from Mr. Walsh. Mr. Thompson, you were right. I underestimated the power of the younger generation. Thank you. I appreciate you giving them a chance and believing in their potential. No, I'm the one who should be thanking you. You made me realize that our company also needs to change. In fact, we're planning to launch a young talent development program like yours. Could you give us some advice? Of course. I'd be glad to help. Thank you. Oh, and by the way, we've also decided to fully implement the AI system. We're counting on you. Thank you very much. We'll make sure to meet your expectations. After hanging up, I felt a profound sense of relief and joy. This success went beyond a single project. It might be a significant step toward transforming Japanese corporate culture. That evening, I gathered all employees for an urgent meeting. Everyone, I have great news. The project with Sonic Technology was a huge success, and full implementation has been approved. A loud cheer erupted from the crowd. But this isn't the end, it's just the beginning. We'll use this success as a stepping stone to reach even greater heights and drive change in the entire Japanese IT industry. The employees' eyes sparkled with excitement. I could see great potential in each of them. And now, I'd like to invite the members of the new team who achieved this success to come on stage. Melanie, everyone, please come forward. Melanie and the young team members, looking a bit bashful, stepped up to the stage. These are the people who hold the future of our company and Japan in their hands. Let's give them a big round of applause. The room filled with thunderous applause. And going forward, I want all of you to follow their example. regardless of age or background. I encourage you to propose new ideas and take on challenges without fear. Our company will support every one of you in these pursuits. After the meeting, Melanie approached me. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. But we're still far from perfect. Melanie, have confidence. Your team's strength is what will drive this company and Japan forward. Keep moving ahead fearlessly. Yes. We'll do our best. Late that night, as I continued working in the office, Travis came by. Mr. Thompson, that was an incredible achievement. I regret not trusting the young team sooner. Travis, it's never too late. From here on out, I'd like you to use your experience to guide them. Yes, I'll do everything I can. Thank you. Our role as experienced seniors is to support the younger generation, creating an environment where they can unleash their full potential. That's our mission. You're absolutely right. I'm honored to play my part. I looked out the window, and the night view sparkled. The lights seemed to symbolize a bright future for our company and for Japan. Travis, we're only halfway there. Let's aim even higher without letting this success make us complacent. Yes, Mr. Thompson. From now on, I'll actively bring forward new ideas. That's the spirit. If we combine your experience with the fresh ideas of the younger team, even greater innovation is bound to happen. In the weeks that followed, the company began to change dramatically. The younger employees grew more confident, and new project proposals started flowing in. Meanwhile, the experienced employees also rallied to support them, fostering a new kind of collaboration that bridged generations. One day, Melanie burst into my office, clearly excited. Mr. Thompson. We've got big news. What's going on, Melanie? Did something happen? Yes. We've received an inquiry about our AI work support platform from a major company. Oh, that's fantastic news. Which company? Global Corporation. They want to implement our system company-wide. Global Corporation? The largest general trading company in Japan. This is huge. Yes. But, honestly, I'm also nervous. Can we really handle such a large project? Melanie, have confidence. You and your team already proved yourselves with Sonic Technologies project. Plus, the whole company will support you if needed. There's no need to worry. Thank you. We'll give it everything we've got. This project marked a major turning point for our company. Securing a deal with a prestigious company like Global Corporation greatly elevated our reputation. Additionally, news of this success rippled across the industry, drawing attention to our innovative approach. 3 months after the project began, the AI work support platform was successfully implemented at Global Corporation. The results were phenomenal. A 30% increase in employment rates for people with disabilities. A 25% improvement in employee job satisfaction. Overall productivity up by 20%. These achievements were prominently featured in industry and economic magazines. Headlines declared, Tech Innovations Youth-Driven Reforms Transforming Japan's Work Culture. Following this success, we received a flood of new projects and partnership offers. However, with this rapid growth came new challenges. Securing and developing talent, ensuring rigorous quality control, and improving internal communication, all of these issues needed to be addressed. But the employees approached these challenges with a positive attitude. One day, I received an invitation from the Japan Business Federation. They asked me to deliver a keynote speech at a symposium focused on Japan's work style reform. Everyone, listen up. Our work has been recognized, and I've been invited to speak at the Japan Business Federation Symposium. A cheer erupted from the employees. But we can't rest on our laurels. Our journey has only just begun. Let's commit ourselves to changing Japan's entire approach to work. Mr. Thompson. Please tell us about your bigger dreams for us. All right. Our next goal is to expand this AI work support platform globally. We'll transform work cultures around the world with this innovative system from Japan. That's our new vision. The employees' eyes shone with excitement. I sensed great potential and passion within each of them. Let's go, everyone. There's still so much to do. Our journey to change the world starts here. A wave of applause swept through the crowd. In that moment, I was certain. Our company would go beyond just being a single business, and it would become a powerful force shaping work culture in Japan and around the world. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. But with this young, passionate team beside me, I knew we could overcome any obstacle. Our challenge was just beginning. Starting with the success at Sonic Technology, Tech Innovation's reputation began to soar. Project after project led by young employees achieved success, attracting attention both within and beyond our industry. Inspired by this momentum, I decided to initiate our next bold reform. I introduced an open HR system for all employees. At a company-wide meeting one morning, I began explaining the new system. Everyone, starting today, we're implementing the open HR system. Under this system, all evaluations and project assignments will be fully transparent. Anyone can apply for a project they're interested in, and the project leader will decide on their inclusion. A buzz went through the crowd. A mix of surprise and anticipation spread among the employees. Additionally, we'll revamp the pay system. Base salaries will be standardized, and large bonuses will be awarded based on performance. This means that even younger employees can earn more than veterans if they achieve significant results. While some senior board members looked displeased, the young employees' eyes lit up with excitement. And finally, all project progress and outcomes will be made publicly available within the company. This will create an environment where everyone can evaluate each other's work and learn together. After this announcement, the company began to move forward rapidly. Many employees actively applied for new projects, and cross-departmental collaboration took off. 1 month later, the effects of the new system began to visibly materialize. The speed of project completion increased by an average of 30%, and customer satisfaction saw a substantial rise. Additionally, our employee engagement survey showed a 40% improvement compared to the previous year. This success started drawing attention from the entire industry. Several major media outlets featured our reforms at Tech Innovation as special reports. One day, I received an invitation from the Japan Business Federation. They asked me to deliver a keynote speech at a symposium on work-style reform in Japan. I took the stage and spoke about our company's reforms. One of the biggest challenges Japanese companies face is not fully harnessing their employees' potential. Removing the barriers of seniority and siloed structures, and creating an environment where every employee can freely express their talents, is the key to fostering innovation. The audience erupted in applause. After the speech, many business leaders asked questions about the details of our reforms. Our company's changes sent a ripple through Japanese corporate culture. While there were still forces clinging to the old ways, the wave of change was undeniably spreading. Back at the office, I smiled with satisfaction. We were only halfway there, but we were steadily moving closer to the ideal company we envisioned. I also felt that this reform could ripple out across Japan as a whole. A year passed since the reforms at Tech Innovation began. The company achieved remarkable growth, establishing itself as an industry leader. One day, I called Melanie into my office. Melanie, take a look at the results of your AI work support platform. Seeing the data on the large screen, Melanie held her breath. In companies where it was implemented, employment rates for people with disabilities rose by an average of 30%. And their job retention rates increased by 50%. You've truly made a difference in many people's lives. Tears welled up in Melanie's eyes. Thank you. But this was only possible with everyone's support. No, This is the result of your talent and hard work. And I have a major announcement to make to you. Melanie looked a bit anxious. The truth is, I've decided to step down as president next month. What? But why? The company is on a solid path. I want to leave it in the hands of your generation. And I paused briefly. I'd like to nominate you as the next president. Melanie's face froze in shock. Me? But I still lack experience. You have more than enough ability. And above all, you embody our company's values. Harnessing young talent and driving innovation. This is the future of tech innovation. Melanie replied in a trembling voice. I understand. I'll do my very best. Yes, I'm counting on you. The following week, we held a company-wide assembly. I took the stage to announce my retirement and Melanie's appointment as the new president. The crowd murmured with surprise, but soon erupted in applause. I want to leave you with this: the strength of our company lies in bringing out the full potential of each individual. Here, you're valued for your abilities and ideas, regardless of age or background. Don't ever forget this principle. I handed the microphone quietly to Melanie as she stepped up to the stage. Though nervous, she began to speak in a strong voice. I was once a new hire who was told to eat lunch in the restroom. But thanks to Mr. Thompson's reforms, I was able to discover my potential. From now on, I will do everything I can to bring out the potential in each of you. The crowd erupted in applause. The young employee's eyes sparkled with hope. I smiled with satisfaction. The company was indeed moving in the right direction. And I was confident that this wave of change would spread throughout Japan. After stepping down, I decided to travel across the country, giving talks at companies and schools. Drawing from my experiences at Tech Innovation, I advocated for work-style reform and innovation. It was the dawn of a new era. And it all began with a chance encounter with a new employee I'd met in front of the restroom. Life often hides turning points in the most unexpected places. A year after being let go from Tech Innovation, Kevin's life had taken a sharp downward turn. After leaving, he joined another major IT firm through his network, but there, too, he attempted to impose outdated personnel management practices, leading to backlash from younger employees. Within 3 months, he was let go for significantly lowering contract employee morale. Kevin then sought jobs at several companies, but rumors from Tech Innovation had spread across the industry, making it difficult for anyone to consider hiring him. Eventually, Kevin started his own career consulting business. But his outdated values and inflexible approach failed to resonate with modern job seekers. One day, he happened to pass some employees from Tech Innovation on the street. They were animatedly discussing work, and among them was Melanie. Kevin hid in the shadows, watching them with a complex expression of envy and regret. That night, he sat in his dingy apartment, watching a TV program about tech innovation. On the screen was Melanie, now the company's president, passionately speaking. Our company is a place where all employees, regardless of age or background, can realize their full potential. Kevin grimaced and turned off the TV. Beside him lay a pile of unsent resumes. Damn! If only I'd been a bit more flexible back then. He sighed deeply, reaching for a bottle of cheap whiskey. Kevin was beginning to realize that his stubbornness had ruined his life. But by then, it was too late. Kevin's downfall starkly illustrated the risks of refusing to change. Through his own mistakes, he'd lost his ticket to a promising future. 2 years after stepping down from Tech Innovation, my life was filled with a new purpose. I had established the Japanese Corporate Innovation Association and was giving lectures across the country. My lectures were always packed, with many corporate leaders and young employees listening intently. One day, I gave a special lecture at my alma mater. Don't be afraid of change. Change itself is the source of innovation. After the lecture, a student approached me. Mr. Thompson, I want to start a company like yours someday. But where should I start? I smiled and replied. First, have conviction. Then, have the courage to fight for it. The path will open up for you. The student's eyes sparkled. Moments like these brought me my greatest joy. The following month, I was appointed to the Cabinet Office's Work Style Reform Promotion Committee. My experience and insights would now contribute to policymaking on a national level. On weekends, I cherish time with my family. I go out for a picnic with my wife and our 2 children, spending a relaxed day together. It's something I couldn't do before because I was always tied up with work. One evening, I gazed up at the stars from my balcony at home. My wife came and stood beside me. Honey, do you have any regrets about leaving the company? I smiled gently. Not at all. I feel more fulfilled now. I have the chance to make a difference not just for one company, but for all of Japan. She rested her head on my shoulder. And I get to spend more time with you and the kids. I felt a deep sense of contentment. My life had become everything I'd hoped it would be. The act of trying to save one employee had changed not only my own life but also the future of Japan. The next day, I stepped out of my home with renewed energy, ready for a new lecture. In my eyes shone a hope for a future yet to be seen.